Welcome back to another episode of the Main Quest podcast. This is, of course, the #1 retro gaming podcast that can murder interdimensional void-traveling warlocks with just a wood chipper. You are listening to episode 120, and as always, I am your host, Keith. And I would love to do all of my normal plugs for you here at the top of the show, but I am not feeling it. And there's a lot of reasons for that, actually. None of which I care to disclose, at least not in this monologue. But I will probably get to that in a week or two. Patrons of the show will probably know what's happening with the future of this podcast because the patrons are the podcast. And I'm talking about the Patreon. I guess that's a plug, right? So I guess if you want to know what I'm being really vague about, you could join the Patreon. I wouldn't at this point, but there's a lot of great episodes on there, written reviews, and just recently I released a impromptu video episode where I went through a 64 game tournament bracket and decided once and for all what is the best video game of all time. Actually, it wasn't that dramatic. It wasn't the best video game of all time, but only the ones that were in the bracket. I didn't make the bracket, which made it even a much more fun thought experiment since I didn't have any part in what games were included. This was also my very first video podcast. It's also the very last. Can't believe it took me 6 years to finally put my face on camera. Anyway, you can find a link to the Patreon in the show notes if that's something you want to check out. Never expected, always appreciated. With that said, it's a Final Fantasy episode, so strap in because it's a hefty discussion, and I couldn't have had better guests for this one. Chris Coplien returns, which is a treat because I'm willing to bet that our friendship actually probably kicked off with us yelling at each other on the internet about Final Fantasy games. And so he's finally here to talk about one face to face with me. And we even yell at each other about okay, we probably don't yell, but share some of our disagreements with each other in this episode. And then finally, I had Corey Carlson on the program not too long ago. And now I have the other half of my life in gaming here, Marc Triforce Duddleson, who I've worked on with other projects before, but I'm honored to formally finally have him on the show for the first time, and hopefully not the last. So settle into whatever you're doing, if you're at work or on a long drive, because this is it, baby. We're talking about Final Fantasy V. Him and I send each other like 9/11 memes. Don't look at me like that, Chris.
I didn't say anything.
You had a look in your eye. So that he recently sent me a post from the White House. Have you seen this? Where they're using like Wii Sports.
Oh no!
To advertise.
Yes, I've seen it.
Sorry, I don't get political on the podcast. Not anymore.
Not in like 6 years.
Yeah. And if you want to use a video game to advertise your war, they should have at least used the Kinect.
Now that's getting with the times.
Yeah.
The first one or the second one?
There were two Kinects?
Yeah, one actually blew up a system, metaphorically speaking.
Yes.
Did they say the PS3 was the thing that was gonna like the military was using the PS3 or something?
I think it was the PS.
There was like something like, like the I think it was like both the PS2 and PS3. It's like the PS2 is so powerful it can launch nuclear weapons.
I think it was
Saddam Hussein's like buying up all of the PS2s.
Yes, and linking them together to make a supercomputer with the power of the emotion engine.
Have you all ever seen the I haven't seen the new Fantastic Four movie that came out like last year, but like the one before then, like everyone like hated all the ones that like came before, but like I forget when it released, but it was like there was like the first two, and they had like they were like a movie and a sequel of the same actors, and then there was like another unrelated movie, and me and a friend watched it not long ago, and we actually kind of liked it. Like everyone seems to hate it, but it like was kind of a bit of a horror movie. We were like, whoa, this is not what we expected. We kind of liked it. Anyway, at the beginning of the movie, like, what's his name? Reed, I think, the smart one. Like he's like a flashback when he's a kid, and he's like opening up this like interdimensional rift, and like part of his like insane like garage science experiment setup is like a rack of like 20 N64s.
And with all the bottlenecking, it still couldn't process things as fast as the Saturn.
What are they doing with all those rumble packs?
Oh, you know.
The joke's on us. Saddam Hussein was just having like a really awesome LAN party.
Yeah.
And let's not get political. Let's talk about other types of politics like crystals and jobs. First, I will introduce the returning guest. He is one half of the Retro Hangover podcast, or 1/3, depending on who you ask. He's somewhat of a time mage himself.
Oh.
Especially with that beard.
Oh.
It's a retro video game podcasting thing. Time mage, retro games. Anyway.
Yes.
Hey, Chris. It's Chris Coplien.
Hi. Here
he is.
Good to be back here again. I think I haven't been here since, Sonic CD? And in the meantime, Matt Storm's been on here like 20 times, so I'm glad to be back. Thanks, Keith. It's thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
You sound a little salty. I think you were on Road Rage after that.
No, I was on Road Rash. I wasn't on Road Rage.
Road Rage. I'm still confusing the two. How could I do that?
Was Road Rash after? It might have been. I can't get these things straight.
Hey, I'm glad to finally have you on a Final Fantasy podcast.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy V, no less.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Next, joining us for the first time on the podcast, he is part of many projects, but you might know him as the necromancer of My Life in Gaming, because he could make your old games come back to life. With
I don't know about that.
I'm reaching on this one. Just let me have this. It is Marc Triforce Duddleson. How you doing, man? Thank you for taking the time out to come on and talk about this game.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I really like the idea of making more time to replay old favorites, and I know I didn't strictly have to for this podcast, but it sounded like a fun idea. Especially, I had a overseas trip recently, and I thought, you know what, bringing the analog pocket along and playing some FF5 on a 8 to 9 hour plane flight sounds pretty good.
I mean, it was a handheld game technically, so also kind of like
although I was playing the Super
it.
Nintendo. I was playing the Super Famicom version, not the GBA version.
I won't tell.
But
well, before we get into the podcast proper try, I do want to pick your brain just a little bit. And, as of this recording, your better half was just here when we were talking about Another World. or out of this world, depending on what you want to call it. I would like to hear your version of how My Life in Gaming kind of came together and how you and Corey linked up, and what was that like for you on your end?
So I'm also one of the co-founders of a website called the Backloggery. Although I think officially the on the Backloggery is dropped now. It's just Backloggery, backloggery.com. Founded in 2007, sort of started brainstorming and testing out the ideas behind that back in like 2005, 2006. And 2006. And so still don't have a lot of involvement with like the design and stuff, but still stream with them every Monday night. And so Corey was just a community member on the site. We kind of hit it off because we were playing a lot of the same types of games at the time, and also, just had a similar professional career, working in video production and post-production. So, we met in person when a whole bunch of Backloggery people came to the MagFest convention in 2013, I think. And before then, we'd been talking about like looking at some of this like video upscaling stuff with the Frame Meister, which was like the big thing at the time. And we were looking at this and thinking like, this real consoles can't look like this. Like, S video is as good as you can do. Like, what's up with this? And so we started, figuring out about RGB and these different devices that let you upscale your graphics, and eventually Corey bought one, and I was more convinced of the validity of this when he was sending me screenshots of the results he was getting, and so then I bought one, and we kind of had a really good setup for capturing games from really old to modern, and in a way that was better quality than most people on YouTube were doing at the time with any method other than emulation. And so we thought, well, let's just use that and start a YouTube channel together, since we're both video editors and stuff, so it really didn't, the intent wasn't for us to be known for our videos on video quality and upscaling and stuff. But the channel was kind of started because of that. That's kind of how it came together.
But your intent was to get people to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these pieces of equipment.
oh yeah, 100%. We get a kickback from all of it. It's all a big scheme.
Yeah, I was I don't want to like repeat myself too much because Corey was just on, but yeah, I mean, when I was starting the podcast and trying to figure out a way to play these games, replay these games as intended, as somebody who doesn't own a CRT, and just kind of being on the lookout for the type of tech that could upscale it and play it correctly without any kind of input lag or anything like that. That's how I came across you guys. And this was like in 2019. And so that just kind of set me off on a long journey of doing that kind of research and just kind of binging the stuff that you guys were putting out, and really being incredibly indecisive just because of all of the stuff that you guys had reviewed.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's your fault I'm doing this. With that. Oh, and so now, so now you guys are, I mean, Corey's kind of doing, well, I'm sure you also have a part in kind of like the bigger documentaries and stuff. I didn't get to talk about it with Corey, but he did the, oh man, I'm going to, embarrassing, Game Informer, right?
EGM.
He had
EGM.
EGM,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Thank you. Chris is the podcast host now.
I mean, That was really a passion project between Corey and Joe Redifer from GameSack. I you know, as we'll actually discuss as part of our own histories on Final Fantasy V, I was a Nintendo only kid for a very long time. And so, you know, I was reading Nintendo Power. So I didn't really grow up too much with that magazine, but it was a real pleasure to get to learn about it along the way and get to meet and know the people and interview them. And they had just such fascinating stories, and really made me appreciate the role that they played in, you know, getting information out there and kind of setting a precedent for how game news was acquired and broken. And, you know, they document things that they weren't supposed to document. And some of it is the only known existence of certain games, certain versions of the games. And so, you know, video game history has a lot to be grateful to them. But yeah, I mean, we haven't done a whole lot with documentary type stuff for a while. It definitely got to be pretty overwhelming, especially these large ones that interview many different subjects. For myself, I'm interested in maybe doing some more small scale things that are, you know, maybe focused on like one person or something like that, because we definitely like around like 2017 to 2019, we definitely bit off more than we could chew when it came to documentary stuff. And yeah, it gets pretty overwhelming juggling all of that.
Then, of course, finally, I do have to ask you, Try, what is your favorite video game of all time?
Ooh, you know, it kind of changes all the time, probably. You know, it used to be A Link to the Past, and then it was Ocarina of Time, and then it was A Link to the Past again, and then it's like, actually, like Majora's Mask is probably my favorite Zelda game, but then again, would I actually call it my favorite game of all time? I usually just say Mario 3, but if I'm being honest, I might like Mario 64 more. I don't know.
It's interesting because I asked this question to the last person that was on, and he said it could be two different ones. He said just like one that was like in his heart, his favorite game of all time. But then he was like, but if I had to pick something by hours played, it would be this game. And I've never heard anybody be like, well, I did play 200 hours of, you know, Overwatch or something. So I guess that counts, you know? So.
There's so much room in my heart for my favorite games that there's like 20 games I want to put in my top 5, right? You know, yeah. It's an impossible task.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. Chris, is your favorite game still Streets of Rage 2?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I just got to ask you that every time you come on.
Wow, what a firm answer. I respect it.
There's I sometimes have to remind myself that it is and go back and play it, and then I remember why it is. So I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it.
All right, gentlemen, are we ready? Are we ready to do this thing?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm ready to fiesta.
Let's talk about Final Fantasy V. So as I would like to do, as I want to, I always try not to say it. As
Why
I
is
want
that?
to do with every episode, I like to talk about my previous history, our previous history with the game in question. And I will go first because I feel like I just kind of talked about this on the Final Fantasy IV episode. Longtime listeners will have heard it on Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. So real quick, I'll get it out of the way. The first time I played Final Fantasy V was probably right around the time that Final Fantasy VII was coming out. So having learned of the greater franchise, 5 and 4 were the games that introduced me to emulation back in 1996. Thank you, Squaresoft. And with 7 coming out, I wanted to play the games that I was missing out on. And that's also what I found out. The nonsensical release dates, and how 5 was never actually released here. And so I, through entering the correct AOL keywords back in the day, I found some websites that led me to some very sketchy, low quality translations of this game, but I got to play it, so I couldn't really complain. I think I even tried to play the Japanese version, like the original Japanese version of this, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so I didn't get very far. But yeah, like playing Final Fantasy V, like on my Acer Explorer late at night using, the WSAD keys and a space bar to make way through the game, and like talking to other people like in like gaming chat rooms and stuff. It was like just like some peak summer nights for me back in the day. And as far as what I thought about it, I mean, I loved it. I love Final Fantasy V basically until Final Fantasy VII came out. Pretty sure like I would have been like, yeah, this is my favorite Final Fantasy. I never had a Game Boy Advance, but when it got re-released on the GBA, I decided to emulate the Super Famicom version again, replay through it, and which by this time it already had a better translation, so that was cool. And I felt pretty good claiming it as like, in my opinion, being like the best Super Nintendo era Final Fantasy. And then I came back to it again when I was replaying the entire series in 2015. And then I played it again for King of Games 1992. There's your plug, Chris.
Thank you.
One of your many plugs. and then I played it once more for this very episode. And I know people are going to be like, what, you think this is the best Super Nintendo Final Fantasy? I have played 6. Final Fantasy VI is the best game that I've never finished. So I'll just put it that way. I've never finished Final Fantasy VI in all the years that I have played it. So yeah, I think, I mean, not to bury the lead, but I think Final Fantasy V is still my favorite Super Nintendo Final Fantasy. And it's also one of the very few physical carts that I actually own. So it just kind of goes to show you how I feel about this game. But I feel like I've ranted on long enough. Chris, what's your previous history of Final Fantasy V?
I'm sorry. That was terrible. So it's mostly similar to yours, but except that with my Final Fantasy experience, I didn't really get into it starting with 7. I got into it starting with 1. That was my first Final Fantasy. And then I just progressively got into the series. So then I think I played Mystic Quest after that. Played Final Fantasy 2 or 4 after that. And didn't own either of them to my recollection. So the first game I got after that was Final Fantasy 3/6. I know I have to use both the names here just because of the chronology in my memory and what I was experiencing at the time. But we all know what they are now. But you get to Final Fantasy 7 and just like you, it's like, wait, what? What's going on here? This is ridiculous. What happened to 4, 5, and 6? And we all found out what that was. But during that time, I think a year after Final Fantasy 7 came out, I went over to my friend's house. I had a weekly sleepover at this friend's house. Every Friday night I go over to his house and we'd play video games. And then one night I go over there and they had this computer room where they had 3 PCs and they're all kind of gaming quality except for one. And he was playing Final Fantasy 4 on it. And I was like, what is this? And he's like, yeah, we can play Super Nintendo games on the computer. I'm like, this is wild. This is crazy. I like this. So even though I could already play these games in my house, and play them on my Super Nintendo. Now I wanted to play them on the computer because it was novel. Like, why wouldn't you? So the next thing came out that was, well, hey, if I could play Final Fantasy IV on this, where do you get these? And then it's like, yeah, you can get Final Fantasy V on the computer too. You just go to the site and you can download it. And I got all excited. And back then, how we would transfer games is we would take floppy disks and we would put ROMs on the floppy disks. And we would just transfer them between houses, and they were like 1.44 megabytes, if I remember correctly. And that's the storage space we used. And Final Fantasy V was a little bit larger, so it created a problem. We tried putting it on 2 floppy disks and like splitting the file in order to get it on the computer, but that didn't work. So I stole, well, I don't say steal, I let my parents know I was doing this, borrowed my parents' zip drive with the massive size of 100 megabytes, and brought it over to my friend's house. I don't know why I just didn't download it myself. I had internet, but went over to my friend's house and put it on the zip drive and then transferred it back to my home and played it there. Probably because downloading a 2 megabyte game back then took like 30 minutes. It was wild times back then. And I think he had faster internet.
Also, like if your parents picked up the phone, it totally ruined everything.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I don't like finding out it was translated too was wild, because that just opened up my mind to a whole host of new RPGs out there for the Super Nintendo that we just didn't know that they existed. And even then it was like there was still plenty of RPGs made in the United States that we didn't know existed. And they started getting these translations, and like Keith said, they're all weird. They cursed a lot. You know, you had a lot of people in games for the Super Nintendo saying damn. And it's like, wow, Japan is so cool. They say curse words. And that, you know, that's what else are you going to think? These are people translating these games. They have to be right. The internet doesn't lie about these things. This is 100% totally accurate. Come to find out later that, you know, they probably went a little too far. Still a better job than Square did on the PlayStation. That's an entirely different story. But you know, it was a fascinating time to try out a game that you hadn't played in a series that I loved. And I didn't make it very far for a very long time. And I don't think I actually beat the game until I got Final Fantasy V Advance many years later. And that's when I actually buckled down. It's like, you know what? I'm going to try and figure out these mechanics. I might have beat it emulated. I can't remember. But I know I definitely got the full feeling of it with Final Fantasy V Advance. And it started to grow on me a little bit, but not like massively. And then someone, one of the followers of our show, longtime follower, and we call him like the first patron saint because he's one of the first people who started listening to the shows, a good friend of Shane named Lyle, introduced the Final Fantasy V 4-Job Fiesta. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds tough. And I think I played it for like 4 or 5 years straight. I only missed it for the first time last year since it was introduced to me. Just because I got way too busy. But then I really started falling in love with the game and figuring out its mechanics and exactly what it was trying to accomplish. And it just made me view the game in an entirely different way. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it today for that reason.
Try, what about you?
You know, it's interesting to hear you guys tell your stories, because I do think there's a common story of people like either discovering fan translations for the first time through Final Fantasy V, or discovering the concept of emulation in general through Final Fantasy V, you know, the missing Super Nintendo Final Fantasy. That wasn't the case for me. You know, I'm kind of fuzzy on the exact timeline of some of this stuff. But for me, for instance, the first time I saw a fan translation in action was Seiken Densetsu 3. So I remember thinking like, oh wow, that's really cool. But you know, for some reason, I never like considered using emulation for systems I owned. Like there wasn't like a moral reason or legal reason.
I was going to say,
that.
did you delete your ROMs after 24 hours too?
No, I mean, it's just like, well, I have this. Like, it just, I don't know why, but like, I tinkered around a little bit with like Genesis emulation. I didn't have anything but Nintendo consoles, and I remember playing a good ways into Sonic 2 on an emulator. But yeah, I wasn't heavily into that. I'm not really sure when I knew that there was a missing Final Fantasy. I remember watching a friend play Final Fantasy 2 and 3, and of course we thought at the time that they just followed each other. It was probably when Final Fantasy 7 comes along, I'm like, wait, why is that Final Fantasy 7? The last one I heard of was 3. So then, you start learning that, there's actually a 2 and a 3 and a 5 that didn't come out over here. And the first of those missing Final Fantasies to, escape Japan in an official capacity was, of course, Final Fantasy V with the Final Fantasy Anthology on PS1. And, this was right around the time I was getting into RPGs. I was getting into RPGs finally, probably about 1998-ish, and which started with a used copy of Chrono Trigger, $70 back then for a used cart. That was a big leap of faith, but it was worth it. It got me into RPGs. And so yeah, I was really excited about Final Fantasy Anthology. I remember a friend gained it day one, and thinking it was cool to see this missing Final Fantasy. I didn't have my own PS1 yet though, but early the year after it came out, which it must have been 99, right? I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy Anthology, like Final Fantasy Anthology and Final Fantasy 8, if my memory serves, released in the same month. I'm pretty sure they both released in September 99.
After 7,
Final Fantasy 8.
Yeah, after 7, it was just like a miasma of like Final Fantasy stuff coming out.
They dumped a lot of stuff. So anyway, I remember that. And so when I finally got my first non-Nintendo system, I was like, man, I like RPGs. And I'd been like kind of catching up with Super Nintendo RPGs. It was actually like a really smart thing to do in retrospect, because those games are expensive now, right? I got them when they were used and no one wanted them. But then, I was like, okay, well, I want to play some new RPGs now. So I'm like, I need to get a PS1. So I got I traded in some stuff to Funkoland, got a refurbished PS1, which is still working fantastically to this day. And here I am saying I'm buying this to play new RPGs. The first game I buy for it is Final Fantasy Anthology, because I am so excited to play a Super Nintendo game on my brand new first,
with cutscenes.
But with a few FMVs in the beginning and the end. I am like, I don't think I thought about how funny this was at the time. I get my first non-Nintendo system and I'm just chomping at the bit to play a Super Nintendo game on it. Cause I'd borrowed a PS1 from a friend in high school, and already played through Final Fantasy 7. So I was like, man, I can't wait to play Final Fantasy 5. I was excited. So I get that. And man, I remember, just loving it, and just being amazed by the, all that you could do with it, which obviously we're going to get into. But yeah, I loved it. Always kind of considered it the gameplay Final Fantasy over, story. Unlike you, Keith, I would not consider it my favorite Super Nintendo Final Fantasy, but it's probably, I probably like both 4 and 6 more, but that there's like centimeters separating all 3 of those games for me. Like if I had to rank them, it would be at the bottom, but that by no means I hold low self-esteem. It's low self-esteem, low esteem. That by no means means I hold it in low esteem. It's fantastic. I love it a ton. But I've replayed it fewer times than 4 and 6. Before my current playthrough that I'm working on, I'd only ever played all the way through it again once, which was for a 4-job fiesta in 2013, I think. 2013 or 2014. So yeah, that's kind of my history with it. And both those times I played through it was the PS1 version, which I know is not super popular, but you know what? It was, I can't hate it because it was what brought us Final Fantasy V officially for the first time. And I think it is unfairly assessed because it came with Final Fantasy VI, which runs so bad on PS1. And, you know, Chrono Trigger's release later on didn't help. But I like to argue that Final Fantasy IV plays just as well, if not better in some ways than it does on Super Nintendo. And Final Fantasy V, you know, is a bit more of a sort of sluggish game anyway. Like, you know, certain things like the animations of the enemies disappearing as they're defeated and stuff were always a little slow, I felt, compared to Final Fantasy V. So some of the things that I thought was the game being slow on PS1 back in the day, you play that Super Famicom version and you know, yes, it does have a little more loading here and there, but it's nowhere near as bad as Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger on PS1. So I'm a bit of an apologist for that version. I have a bit of a soft spot for it, just as, you know, the way that I was first exposed to it. And never played through the GBA version. I hate the pixel remasters.
Oh, wow.
Really?
So my current replay is, yeah. Oh, I hate the pixel remasters so much. Can't stand how they look or how they how the scrolling works in them. Ugh. But yeah, that's why on my for this replay I brought my analog pocket for the flight to play the Super Famicom version emulated instead of just bringing my Switch and the pixel remasters, because I get very grumpy every time I take a peek at those pixel remasters. I think like, oh, maybe I should play those sometime. Nah, I can't do it. I just love the look and feel and behavior of the original versions so much.
I'm only with you on that.
But perhaps a lot of that is getting
6.
ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. I'd say I agree with you on that for Final Fantasy VI. The other ones,
I haven't really checked out the pixel remasters myself. Well, I had to play the pixel remaster version of 4 because for whatever reason I couldn't get the game to run on my Super Nintendo Mini. Anyway, you try playing a Super Nintendo game on the PS1. First of all, like, it's probably not a unique experience that was how you first played Final Fantasy V, but it is a unique perspective on being like, yeah, I got the PS1 and the first thing I wanted to do was play a Super Nintendo game.
I mean, that is like the most me thing ever, basically.
But it's more common today because it's like, how many, like, I got a new PC last year, and like that's like the trope of like, yeah, somebody getting like a new PC and be like, yeah, I went and got The Sims for it. Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I just built a new PC a couple months ago, and I'm like, ooh, can't wait to play Ocarina of Time at 120 FPS.
Some things never change. did set us up for a good transition here into the show itself, but I'm going to ruin it a little bit because I have to explain to the listeners how this episode is going to work. So returning listeners will know that I don't like to use the regular show's format of development, story, gameplay, presentation when it applies to JRPGs, because JRPGs are just such massive games, and we're getting to an era where they're getting longer. The stories are longer. The gameplay is a little more intricate. And so I just feel like the 3-act structure that I did with Final Fantasy IV is probably what I'm going to do going forward with every game in this genre. So as a reminder, again, yes, 3-act structure. Act 1 will be development and history. Act 2 will be systems and gameplay. And Act 3 will be story and presentation. And sprinkled throughout the episodes, I will dive into some people's retro recollections as they apply to what we're talking about. As for retro recollections, if you want to submit your stories about the game that we are playing, you have to just dive into the Discord. That link is in the show notes. The Discord's free for everybody to join, and come hang out. With that said, let's dive into Act 1, which is the development history. And Try, I think you set us up for a little bit of nice context here, because Final Fantasy V is kind of like the bastard middle child of the Super Nintendo era, right? Like, everybody's favorite Final Fantasy of this era is either 4 or 6.
I mean, I do think there's a lot of people who like, I mean, hey, 4-Job Fiesta, I think people who regularly participate in that may be inclined to say that 5 is their favorite. I certainly don't think it's lacking for, number 1 spots in many people's hearts.
I think isn't 5 Sakaguchi's favorite and a lot of the development team's favorite?
14 is Sakaguchi's favorite because he didn't make it, and he just posts pictures of his character dancing on his YouTube channel. He literally does.
I have yet to play 14. I need to.
Oh well, let me tell y'all, I'm prepared to talk about 14 in this episode, because there are a lot of links and connections and references to 5. So I may have some side notes for you as we go along.
Well, I think a lot of the games in the franchise moving forward from this kind of owe a lot to Final Fantasy V.
Oh, for
especially
sure.
when it comes to the systems and how different each of the game systems are. And even to a degree in which you can break some of those systems. Like I'm thinking of Final Fantasy VIII, for instance. But yeah, why do you guys think that this game gets overshadowed? Like, do you think it has to do just with the fact that it wasn't released alongside of the other ones, and that, it took longer to get out?
I think that's a big part of it. And also that, most people had seen Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, and for some people even Final Fantasy VII by the time that they knew this one existed. And the graphic style harkens much more closely to Final Fantasy IV, which is clearly a simpler style. And also, the story, for whatever reason, I've definitely heard the game have its defenders in terms of story, but there's not much to it. I mean, there's definitely parts that I really enjoy. On my current replay, I've kind of been thinking of it almost as more of a Dragon Quest type story, and I kind of wonder if that was I kind of wonder if that's intentional, because X-Death is very similar to your typical Dragon Quest bad guy who's like, one isn't that different from the other. They're just kind of the demon lord. That's kind of been a bit of a trope in a lot of Japanese games, and I believe in more broadly in Japanese manga and anime and maybe fiction, is, you know, the idea of the demon lord that's just in charge of the monsters, and that's kind of what X-Death is, more so than any other Final Fantasy villain. So they may have been intentionally kind of like trying on that type of story. It just ends up being very archetypical, which is not a bad thing. I mean, a lot of games in the series have borrowed elements from it and expanded on them, especially 14, that and have done so very well and very successfully. So I think it's a combination of you know, the fact that it looks a little older, it doesn't have as much of a story, and a lot of people really require a good, interesting story for their RPGs. I don't. I'm more than happy to let the game ride on gameplay alone. But also the music. Like, the music has there's some incredible stuff in here. I love Bartz's hometown theme. I love the final boss themes, and just a lot of the music in the game. But I think it's got one of the weaker regular battle themes, and a lot of other tracks are maybe a little weaker than Uematsu's other works, in my opinion. So I think it's a combination of these factors.
Hold up, just before I let you off the leash, Chris. I haven't obviously covered Final Fantasy VI yet. I'm doing these in order. So I'm gonna, for myself, and I'm just letting you guys know, I'm gonna try not to compare 6 directly. I will be doing a lot of comparisons to 4, though, because I feel like that's fair. I think one of the things, as you're talking about kind of like the story regression in comparison to 4, like, I don't know if this is a hot take, and I talked about this in the episode, but I think there was a lot more character work in 4. Like, a lot of those characters had more defined personalities than I think that they do in 5. I don't think the story of 4 of itself is actually any better or less than what we get here in 5. I know we're not supposed to be really talking about story right now, but that's just how that goes. So I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but
I mean, I think Sakaguchi's biggest strength, and I think this is borne out in the games that he's released, under Mistwalker, and some of the Final Fantasy games that have released without Sakaguchi. I think Sakaguchi's biggest strength is pacing, and I think pacing for me is maybe the most important part of an RPG. An RPG can be short, it can be long, but if it's like kind of teasing you with what's next and kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen when I get here, or if I, try doing this with my character, or, just you're always kind of compelled forward and not like stuck in any one area doing any one thing for all that long. And I think Sakaguchi produced games are just masterful at that pacing. And so my opinion on Final Fantasy VI, I know we're not really talking about, or excuse me, my opinion on Final Fantasy IV, I know we're not really talking about Final Fantasy IV, but it's, is its story anything all that unique or special? Not necessarily, but it's just it's a good story that's told well. And I think Final Fantasy V is just kind of a little silly in comparison. I mean, silliness is good in Final Fantasy.
There's a lot of stuff that happens in 4 that happens just so the movie, just so the game can move forward. There's a lot of stuff that's just like, oh, wow, that was very convenient for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you both took almost all of my talking points here about why I think
apologies.
It's not regarded as well. So there's a couple things and I think Keith really hit the nail on the head when he talked about personality. If you look at the worlds, and I know you don't want to mention Final Fantasy VI, but I will, because I don't know if I'm going to be there on that episode. So I can talk about it here, right? And I wasn't on Final Fantasy IV, but the worlds of Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI the worlds themselves have more personality. So you look at a game like Final Fantasy IV and you have the Kingdom of Baron and its overwhelming power over the land. So you always have this looming antagonist, and it's more than just a person, it's an empire. Same with Final Fantasy VI. It's literally the empire. And then the second half of the game, it's Kefka. So you always have an antagonist that's always really overbearing and the entire world is aware of and counteracting through pretty much the entirety of the game. Final Fantasy V doesn't have that. You're just kind of setting off on an adventure and doing adventure things because you're trying to figure things out. And eventually you run into Exdeath. But Exdeath, you don't really know a lot about him or his intentions or what he's trying to do or anything like that until midway through the game. And by that point, it's kind of like, I mean, it's cool. But like, do you really care about Exdeath as much as you care about Golbez or Kefka? No, like nowhere near. And I think for a lot of people, especially considering the fact that this is a game that a lot of people didn't grow up with in North America specifically, and a lot of people's introduction to JRPGs in North America was Final Fantasy VII, which is very story focused and has a lot of parallels in the sense that I described with an overbearing kind of antagonist from the beginning with Shinra, and then a secondary one with like the bad guy personality all the way through with Sephiroth, even though I think Sephiroth's an overrated villain. Completely different story for another time. It had a lot of those same elements that 6 and 4 did. And that was kind of the archetype for what a good RPG was. Gameplay elements were there in all of those games, less so with Final Fantasy IV, kind of with 6, definitely with the materia system with 7 that you could abuse. But you kind of get the same thing with 8. Where, you know, who's really the villain at the beginning? You're just kind of wandering around doing child soldier stuff, but you have a system that you can abuse the shit out of. Guess what? Also probably the least regarded or least favorite in the zeitgeist of the Final Fantasies of the time. So there's a lot of parallels between the two. Not to mention the protagonist, Butts, is less of a personality than almost any character out of any of the Super Nintendo characters. And he's the guy that you're rolling with. I
do like how he's just an adventurer.
Yes, that's cool. And you know what? Silent protagonist still could work. It works in Dragon Quest. It works in Chrono Trigger, but it's not what Final Fantasy had really established retrospectively at this point. I mean, yes, Final Fantasy III had really everyone was a silent protagonist. You could copy paste anyone on there. There's no personality about anything too. And you could probably argue why that one isn't really well regarded. And everyone loves Final Fantasy II. And, I hope people realize that's a joke. I love Final Fantasy II.
I thought you were taking a shot at me.
I am. But, another thing that Tri said as well is that the pacing in Final Fantasy IV is exquisite. Just exquisite. It's probably some of the best pacing and it's why it's my favorite Final Fantasy game. It's almost unparalleled, especially for the era.
Yep.
And Final Fantasy VI also has some really good pacing. Final Fantasy V's is it's okay. It's fine.
It's better than most modern RPGs.
Sure. It was better. It was better than most RPGs of its time. But compared to 4 and 6, the pacing it doesn't match as well, and it definitely feels a bit stilted because the first half of the game is just kind of getting the jobs and figuring out the jobs, and that's your priority. Not really making it through the game and leveling up. It's you got to learn the job system. Oh, you got some more jobs? Okay, like. Here's some long path to get to another kingdom that doesn't really matter and find the MacGuffin really so you can get some experience and learn the job system and get to an impossible boss and reconfigure yourself. Much different way of a gameplay approach that I think was less appealing to people, even looking back at it, especially not having it as a kid. So I think that's all there. Your points were very well made, and that's why I don't know why I talked as long as I did. But yeah, I agree.
As a whole, I do think the narrative of 5 is somewhat of a step backwards from 4. Like, yeah, the world building in 4 is very good. It's very good. But I like the narrative and the story as like a whole. I kind of think they're on the same level, but also I don't know. Maybe we didn't play the same game. I don't know, but you know, I have to wonder if narrative, like the step back from the narrative focus, because for like Sakaguchi wanted for it to basically be like a movie essentially. So I wonder if it was intentional for them to put all the focus into the gameplay this time around. Because
it may have very much been.
By the way, I mean, this isn't the first time they used the job system. They did that in Final Fantasy 3, right?
Which also was a story regression
Yes.
from 2.
Yes. I think they came out sometime at like after 5 or after 4 and said that they alternated between what they wanted to be a story game and a gameplay game. I think they're on record for saying that up until like 6 or 7 or something like that, when they just kind of threw that out the window. I might be wrong there, but I remember that being distinct, and how they approached that. I mean, you also have to think Sakaguchi was a big wizardry fan, and these are really examples when you look at Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy 5, the job system, something that's big in wizardry. They probably wanted to tap into quite a bit. So there's no story in wizardry, by the way. So I could see them wanting to alternate and kind of give into their passions and then give into more of a narrative kind of development sense.
I mean, Final Fantasy 3 didn't even have the ATB system at the time. It had like a form of it, like a very archaic form of it. But 4 introduced that. I mean, they're just basically jamming both systems together into this. And yeah, as I said before, I think there's like a lineage to the rest of the games from here on out, as far as kind of manipulating the mechanics from like the first 5 games, and turning it on its head and doing something creative with it and allowing the player to discover different ways to play around it. Kind of making like a toy box of sorts, you know?
I would argue the Final Fantasy series was really built on itself, you know, repeatedly, and really refined its formula up until 11. I think 1 through 10, there's building blocks, and with each game informing the other one all the way up through 10. And and you can definitely see it.
It's interesting because at the time, you know, it was kind of this unusual concept, at least for those of us in the West, that like, oh, these are sequels, but they are different worlds, different characters, have nothing to do with each other, right? Different gameplay systems, etc. But that was how we thought of Final Fantasy back then. But you're right, like after 10, like things go even wilder and crazier. And you know, in terms of like, they're so varied and how they look, how they play. And you look at those first 10 games and you're like, wow, at the time we thought they were all so different, but there is kind of a lot that unifies them as well compared to what came after. Although I also do like what came after, but it is different. Except for 15.
Yeah, I don't like 15 either.
Game.
I have never gotten that far. I skipped 15 because I played 16.
You can. Good. You don't have to. You can keep it that way. I mean, try it for yourself. Get your own opinion, but
yeah, I want to play a chill bro road trip simulator.
That's the best part. Just cruising in your car, setting it to autopilot and listening to the soundtrack of other Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
Remember Gilgamesh? And we've kind of been tossing around his name here and there. The director for Final Fantasy V, of course, Hironobu Sakaguchi, coming back once again to do this game.
I believe this is the last one that he is credited as the director on.
I think you're right.
He produced them from here on out?
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
So we were kind of talking about the different releases for this game. You know, as Tri kind of told us in his his previous history, he is one of the many people who found RPGs slightly later than some of us, and that's not unusual, actually. You know, our JRPGs are pretty niche in the 90s. And one of the reasons why Squaresoft did not want to release Final Fantasy V is that they were afraid that we just wouldn't understand the job system. It was just a little too complex for us. And so that's when they instead released Mystic Quest, which was my first Final Fantasy, which is hard to admit. But to be fair, I didn't even know it was
it served its purpose.
I didn't know it was a Final Fantasy game until after the fact, because very little text, Final Fantasy, and then just Mystic Quest. I just thought it was Mystic Quest anyway. But yeah, it was a very simplified RPG. Phenomenal soundtrack, by the way.
You're so good.
I haven't played Mystic Quest in 30 years, basically since it came out. I have a feeling I'm still going to like it when I have to cover it on the show. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's, I kind of say the same thing about Quest 64. It's a good game for what it is. It's a short RPG, which is nice, but even though it's short, it does kind of drag on a bit.
I was devastated when people were making fun of me for liking it when I was a kid.
I mean, it's good. It's short, but
you have to make me feel better.
Even still, okay. I wish it was shorter. I would like it more if it was shorter.
I think the Quest 64 comparison is apt because it's not a bad game, and nor is Quest 64. But it's I don't even think the difference between Mystic Quest and Quest 64 is Mystic Quest wasn't really considered to be the worst game ever when it came out. It's just considered to be mediocre, if I remember correctly. Like, it wasn't considered to be all that terrible.
I mean, when I was first shown that game, I did not like RPGs. I watched a friend play them, and I was just so confused by why are battles on a different screen? Why do the enemies not animate? Why do you not make contact with the enemies when you attack them? Like, this was just all very strange, and I couldn't wrap my head around why is this fun? And he actually sat me down and was like, play this game, play Mystic Quest, and I will teach you how RPGs work with this game. He clearly saw what the purpose of that game was and tried to get me into it. It didn't work at the time, but he did later get me with Chrono Trigger. So
by the way, I don't think Square was wrong. If they didn't have the budget for it, I should say. That's the qualifier. Final Fantasy V is a massive game. It probably would have cost more to localize, to bring it over, I would imagine. I don't know if it had more text or not. I mean, who knows, right? Because that's the biggest reason we didn't get Final Fantasy 2 or 3 on the NES. It's, cost analysis, essentially what it came down to. Do we want to release these games at the end of the life cycle in a genre that's not necessarily popular? And so if you played a game and it was difficult, and Final Fantasy V is rather difficult to people who do not want to take the time to learn the job systems, which I think in the 1990s, especially the early 90s, kids weren't going to try and do that. And the adults who would have taken the time to do that were playing Might and Magic on their PC. So I don't necessarily think Square was in the wrong at that time. Everyone was like, oh, they could have called it Final Fantasy Extreme. That didn't work for Grandia, so that would not have worked for Final Fantasy.
That's an interesting point, because I think the proof is in Final Fantasy VIII. Mm-hmm. I feel like most people who played that knew at the time, despite there being a tutorial, which Final Fantasy V also has. I was kind of surprised by that on my current replay. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty early for just a guided tutorial, isn't it?
Not as long as Final Fantasy VIII, that's for sure.
No. Final Fantasy VIII does make your eyes glaze over.
Nowhere near as long as Final Fantasy 13's.
I've lost count of the people I've talked to who got stuck early on disc 4 fighting a boss at the beginning of disc 4 because they just like literally did not know you could junction magic to your stats. They somehow got that far into the game and like just thought it was like draw magic, you know, junctioning was just like equipping your Guardian Force skills. Like they did not know that like, oh, I could just like put fire on my strength and I'll be like really strong. Like there are so many people who just like did not understand that, did not know you could even do that, because it's like kind of like tucked away in the menu a bit, even though that's like the core system. So yeah, I think you are right, Chris, that Square was right. In 1998, Americans still couldn't figure it out. Why would they have been able to in 93 or 94 or whatever the heck?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because like I said, in my experience in, you know, talking with the Final Fantasy community back then and learning that everybody hated Mystic Quest, it kind of surprised me that Final Fantasy became as big as it did when people were kind of looking at Mystic Quest like the side eye, you know, like what is this? Why did we get
because
this?
you had Final Fantasy 2. Because you had Final Fantasy 2. And I know I'm just stepping over here, but Mystic Quest.
About Final Fantasy 2 or Final Fantasy 4 or Final Fantasy 2?
Yeah, Final Fantasy 4.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly, right. Let's make it all confusing. But you had Final Fantasy 4. And I think that had enough goodwill. And besides, I also do think, I am genuine. I played Mystic Quest around the time it came out. I rented it from Blockbuster. I didn't hate it. I don't think people hated it. I think that it got a reputation of being a bad game, especially during the internet era. And then people jumped all over it and said, oh yeah, we hated it too. Like, oh yeah, it was so bad. It became trendy to hate because it didn't live up to what the old games were. But when it came out, I don't think that was the case whatsoever. I mean, I don't even think a lot of people played it. So a lot of these people who said they didn't like it, I even doubt they played it back in the day, let alone could form an opinion on it.
I don't know. I was called a baby in 1990, whatever, 6 or 7. I'm not saying you guys are
knew
wrong.
Other people who played RPGs in 1996?
Huh?
Well,
yes.
You knew other people who played RPGs?
I mean, if you're playing Mystic Quest after Final Fantasy VII came out, like people are going to look at that and, you know, they are going to laugh in comparison. I mean, you know, I remember bringing the manual for Final Fantasy Anthology, you know, to high school and like show it. Like I was just like, you know, during what was it called? Study hall. That was a long time ago. Like just pouring over the manual for Final Fantasy V, and you know they had like all the jobs in it except for Mime, and you know a list of all the abilities they could learn, and I was just like dreaming about like what kinds of like job combos I was going to try to go for, and I was like showing it to you know my friends and being like, oh, look at all the cool stuff you can do in this Final Fantasy V game, but they just look at the character sprites, which look very much like Mystic Quest. I don't think I really sold anyone on it. You know, it didn't look cool like Final Fantasy VII did, right? Or Final Fantasy VIII, which was out by then as well. So, you know, I think most people who weren't just lovers of the medium for the sake of games themselves, who, you know, most of my friends in high school, you know, they would play, you know, some of the big games everyone was talking about. But me, I was like the gamer's gamer, right? Like I was into, you know, games from years ago. I was into games released today. And, you know, so I was able to look at these like Super Nintendo proportioned characters and see through that and see the game for what it was. But I think most people maybe who were used to seeing how things were represented on PlayStation normally weren't so much into that.
Yeah, I have very similar experiences to you, Try, especially because I was into RPGs. You know, my entire childhood, well, since like I was 10 and like 10 through high school, I got made fun of for listening to the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack in a class. That's just how it was weird. I mean, it's weird to say that, but another thing, like in terms of the gaming internet opinion, gamers TM, which is weird when you're talking about RPGs because that wasn't really the case, but they also have opinions and they were vocal. I loved Saga Frontier. when it came out. I loved that game to death. And this is kind of going on the Mystic Quest. I love how we're talking about Mystic Quest so much in the Final Fantasy V episode, but like that game came out. I think I remember EGM giving it a silver award, saying that they liked the game. And then when Saga Frontier 2 came out, or was ramping up to come out, they're like, oh God, we cannot wait until Saga Frontier 2 comes out to correct all the mistakes of the terrible Saga Frontier 1. I was like, wait. When did we start hating on Saga Frontier 1? Like, when did that happen? I thought you all liked that game. But all of a sudden, there was this collective mentality, even on the internet and through magazines, that Saga Frontier 1 was a terrible game. Now it's a cult classic.
Happens.
Yep.
That happens. Yep. For sure.
Chris, you are not on the Mystic Quest episode. So I'm sorry, you're gonna have to wait for the story that I tell in my previous history, where I got in a physical altercation with Joe Bian. I'm going to dox him right now. He's probably dead. He probably didn't live past 15. With Joe Biancuso, who got in a fight with me because I didn't know what the acronym RPG stood for when I played Mystic Quest, since it was my first RPG.
Oh my God.
What's the transition here? We're talking about release dates, right? We're talking about ports and release dates, right? Meanwhile, Final Fantasy V did release in Japan for the Super Famicom on December 6th, 1992. And as Tri mentioned earlier, in October of 1999, Tosei developed and released the Final Fantasy anthology, which I was being tight-lipped during your previous history, Tri. I did play Final Fantasy Anthology, not really. I rented it from Blockbuster, not knowing what it actually was. I wanted to play Final Fantasy games. Rented it and was like, oh, I played these games already. Like these cutscenes are kind of cool, but it's literally the same game. Why would I want to? I already have these. So,
but it was like the first time you could, buy it in English in America. So to me, it was kind of a big deal. But you mentioned Tosei developing them in Japan. These were released individually and developed over a period of time, which is why the FMV quality from 4 to 5 to 6 is ever increasing in quality quite significantly. So yeah, the FF4 FMV looks almost sub FF7, and the FF5 FMV is like kind of like maybe Parasite Eve levels, and then the FF6 FMV is like Final Fantasy 8 level, pretty much.
Force is comically bad.
Yeah, it's really bad.
I actually had the Japanese collection. I like the design. I like the simplicity of it.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did at the end release a pack of all three, and the Chrono Trigger was always sold as a separate thing there.
And you guys did not play the GBA port, which I think a lot of people would say is like the definitive version of this game, which also it added a couple extra jobs too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is that right? That sounds familiar, but I kind of forget what they might be.
Cannoneer.
Yeah, a lot of people
was one.
Oh, right. That
Necromancer.
Familiar.
I never used them.
Yeah, I've like booted up the GBA version, but never really put much time into it. Probably mostly just because it's a more constrained field of view. The music quality is obviously lesser. So I just never really saw a compelling reason to play through that version. That said, I am actually playing patch of the Super Famicom version with the GBA translation, as opposed to the classic fan translation, which, I know a lot of people have nostalgia for it, and I'm sure it's, tremendously good work, but I don't know. I'm just like kind of boring, and like, I like to play games for what they are. I don't really like tune them to, I don't really care for like quality of life patches and things like that. Like I want to meet the game where it is and experience it, warts and all. The patch I'm using is, is close to like an official translation for the Super Famicom version as you can get. I don't think anyone's made a PS1 translation patch for the Super Nintendo version. In some ways, I would actually kind of enjoy that because I prefer the name Reyna to Lena, and
you like Ferris's pirate accent.
Yes, I do. I mean, there's a bit of that in this GBA. I mean, assuming it is authentically a representative or mostly representative of the GBA translation, like Ferris does have some
little bit
harsh ways of speaking. What's actually surprised me about this translation, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's that good. I mean, granted, like I'm sure the writing in the Japanese version isn't like outstanding or anything. I'm not going to be winning any literary awards, at least. Not that I know for sure. I'm just guessing. But I've been surprised by several things that have come up. Like the phrase like Jiminy Christmas has been used like at least twice. And it's like wait, Christmas shouldn't exist in this world. Like that doesn't make sense. I believe that I maybe came across like another thing or two that was just a bit anachronistic, or, like just something that would only make sense in like the context of our own world's history and language, so I thought that was a bit strange, almost a little hint of like working designs in there, maybe,
What is it? What was the turtle's name? Is it Godot or Gil?
It was Gil in the PS1 version, and it's like Guido. It's like Ghido in the patch I'm playing, which is allegedly based on the GBA translation. That's another example where it's like, oh, like I kind of like the old one better. Like the Wolf Dawn Warrior was Kelga, I believe, and now it's Kelger, which I don't know. It just doesn't sound as nice. I guess one of the big ones, like I think people like really get hung up on like a few like really bad examples in the PS1 translation and like paint the whole thing as bad, like Wyvern for Wyvern, and I honestly didn't even know this until recently. Like, I won't maybe mention the spoiler, but there is a character in the game named Princess Salsa in the PS1 version. And I didn't even know this, but I guess like other versions translate as Sarisa, which, okay, I'll grant that's technically better, but I never was bothered by Princess Salsa, especially considering like there's other things in the world that kind of like evoke musical forms, like the Kingdom of Waltz and stuff like that. So I don't know.
I was going to say about your anachronism. That's why I brought up Gil. Is because Butts walks into him and he says something about what have you been doing down here the entire time? He's like, what do you think I've been doing? Munching on pizza. Clear Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reference.
Speaking of Gil, I took a screenshot while I was playing the other day. He kind of evokes the somehow Palpatine returned. He's like, he's just like, he's telling you all the history of like X death being sealed. And then he's just like, somehow he escaped. Which X Death, by the way, is another one of those interesting ways. It's literally the letter X hyphen death on PS1. I will concede EXDEATH is a better spelling for X Death, but it's still a goofy as heck name.
X Death is the opposite of X Potion, though. Oh, you need the X there.
Well, I just got to the point where spoilers, a character dies, and the other characters gather around, and they're like cure, potion, elixir, phoenix down, raise, they're shouting out, all the in-game methods for overcoming this status. And, just as with other Final Fantasy deaths, the cures, the resurrections, the potions, they don't work if in story death.
No. Well, at least they tried.
They tried,
unlike 2 games later.
Yeah. It's just like they don't even think like, wait a second, does anyone have like a Phoenix down?
Unlike several characters in 4, the death actually means something.
That's true.
Well, yeah,
has staying power. It's permanent. I get that.
From a gameplay perspective,
you get cryo.
Nothing is lost.
But
yeah.
Let's jump into our first recollection here, which is from Lethco, of course, from the Afterglow podcast, who says, "This one I love the mechanics of, but back in the day, I skipped over it. Discovered it through emulation and found a translated ROM, but the first 15 minutes didn't really catch me. And back then, being new to the world of emulation, I was like a kid in a candy store, sampling everything. Years later, I wanted to give it a fair shake and purchased the GBA port and put a couple hours in, only to find my cart save feature didn't work. So again, to the back burner, it went till I finally replayed the mobile release on Steam. Graphics suck, but the game mechanics finally caught me, and I really enjoyed it. Beat it again when the Pixel remaster came out. Thank you, Lethco." There was a mobile release of this game, which I did not know existed.
I forgot about that, probably intentionally.
Good.
So
Yes.
We're going to slide right into today's trivia segment. I'm going to have you guys, I think the best way for this to work, this is going to be a lightning round situation. So let me introduce the game first formally. This is a game that I would like to call Whose Job Is It Anyway? So, as we all know, as Final Fantasy fans, not every Final Fantasy game uses a traditional job system, right? But many characters throughout the franchise still fit those classic archetypes. So,
yes.
tonight, I'm going to have you guys assign a job class to characters who never technically had one. I have 10 characters here.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
The rules
I like it.
are this. So I have 10 characters. I'm going to name a character, and then you guys assign the job that you think best fits them. And so because we don't have any buzzers or anything like that for anybody to buzz in, this is going to be like a lightning round type of thing. You guys will have 5 seconds to answer before I just move on to the next person. It's your gut reaction. If you overthink it, you're gonna lose. All right? We'll snake it to avoid anyone having like a time advantage.
You better not include any characters from Final Fantasy VI because they have jobs.
I mean, there's no engineer job in Final Fantasy V. I assume we're limited to calling out Final Fantasy V jobs. Or
yes, it will be within not counting. I don't have anything from the GBA version. I don't even know what those ones are.
Can I have the list of jobs in front of me for this?
Yeah, why not? Try if you want to take your time to pull up a list of jobs.
Sure.
You can as well.
Let's go. This might not be the most most ideal formatted list, but let's go for it. I know what these
Again,
are.
you
off
only
the top
have
of my head.
5 seconds to
Well
answer.
enough.
I got it up. Try. You won the off-air coin flip, so you will be going first.
Okay.
I totally made that up. There was no coin flip. You're just going first. So you will have 5 seconds to answer. If you get it correct, then we move on to the next one, and then Chris will go next. If you don't answer or you get it wrong, then Chris will have a shot at it. And then we'll move on to the second one. Chris will go first. Same rules. If he gets it, we move on. If he doesn't, then it's your turn to take a crack at it. 5 seconds. Gut reaction. That's it. The first character. Would it help if I said what game they're from in case you guys didn't play it?
I mean, I've played them all, so I'll probably get it.
I haven't. Yeah, I've not played 14 or 16.
But go ahead and say from
For the
Final Fantasy
listeners,
number.
for the listeners, because that's what we're doing this for, right?
Sure.
Okay. Character 1 is Vivi from Final Fantasy IX.
Black Mage.
Correct. So try. You get a point. You're on the board. Congratulations. Chris, it is your turn. You have 5 seconds, my friend, for this Final Fantasy X character named Yuna.
Summoner.
Correct. Oh, we're all tied up. Of course, we are starting a little easy, right? Start off a little easy here. Try. It is back to you for this Final Fantasy VII character, who is called Tifa.
Monk.
Yes, correct. Wow, you didn't even have to think about it. Chris, back to you. Final Fantasy X. Auron.
Samurai.
Correct. Oh man.
Oh, we're
Wow.
gunning for a tied
Yes,
game here.
I don't know if I don't have a tiebreaker.
We're just too good.
Try. Are you ready for our fifth character here? The
Yes.
titular Final Fantasy VI character, Edge.
Ninja?
Correct.
Edge is-
Ooh, with 1 second to spare. Yes.
Yeah, but Edge,
I was supposed to say 6.
Edge is from
You got the
4.
wrong game.
Oh, yeah.
You said the wrong game.
Did I say six? My bad. Yeah. Maybe that's what tripped you guys up. Yeah, I think maybe I meant Shadow. Either way, that would be correct. Chris, it's back to you. With this, for sure, a Final Fantasy VIII character. Trust me on this.
Okay. Okay.
Quistis.
Blue Mage.
Correct.
Ooh, that's almost a trick question because you want to think Whip Beastmaster, but yep, you're right. That's her limit break.
Try. Back to you. Final Fantasy XII. Fran.
Ranger.
Correct.
You know, I was getting nervous when you said Final Fantasy 12 because I'm like, oh boy, I might have to think for a moment.
Back to you, Chris. Number 8 is a Final Fantasy 13 character named Lightning.
Knight.
Correct. Holy. Is this going to end up in a tie? This is insane.
It might.
All right. Try.
Yep.
We're getting to the end here. We have a character from Final Fantasy VII named Sephiroth.
Samurai.
Correct.
Whew. I wasn't too sure if you were going to agree with
God.
that.
Okay. I didn't think, because he's in your party for such a short amount of time, that I was like, I
Well,
thought
you
I
know.
would trip you guys up with that one.
He does have a katana.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of yeah. Could have been a Dark Knight, though. Well, I guess it's technically
Yeah,
not
I
a
mean,
job.
Yeah,
That
Dark
is in
Knight
Final
isn't
Fantasy 3.
in
Yeah, true.
Dark Knight's not in 5.
Chris, I would never try and trick you. Number 10 is a character from a Final Fantasy game.
Oh.
called Strangers of Paradise. Jack Garland.
That is a
Time's up.
berserker.
Try.
I said it.
Not before the bell. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear a bell. My answer got up before you said time's up.
I think he gets it due to Discord lag. Because honestly, I've not played Stranger of Paradise,
Okay.
so I would not.
Chris is wrong. Try.
Berserker.
Wrong. The answer is whatever job best suits f***ing up chaos.
Oh.
Because that game uses a job.
So freelancer.
That game uses a job system. So he does have you can't give him any.
That's why I
job.
said berserker, because he's a f***ing lunatic.
He does it all for the nookie.
I definitely was not thinking of freelancer as a job. So I guess you got.
Yeah, you could just say freelancer.
Or in PS1 translation parlance, bear.
It was a trick question. God damn it.
Well, what about Kimari?
Blue Mage.
Blue mage.
Okay, I agree.
Now I feel like I'm part of the quiz.
Kimari always annoys me because he's the character that lets you branch off of their like predetermined path earliest on. And I'm like, ooh, I'll send him down the black mage path. And then I realize he'll never be as good as Lulu because she's further down that path. And my Kimari was completely useless the first time I played. So I didn't really realize his potential until a replay. Anyway, this is not Final Fantasy X podcast.
Yes. Oh, here's kind of a trick one. What's Mog?
Dancer
Or Geomancer?
Ooh, isn't Gal more of a geomancer or a berserker?
I thought he was more of a berserker.
He's more of a berserker.
Is he also a dragoon? He uses lances.
Oh, Gal could also be a beastmaster.
Oh yeah.
Who's the best bard after this game?
After this game,
Ketchy?
What are there bards?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's even like a main character that's
What is Ketchy?
that's a bard in Final
Who's
Fantasy
that?
14.
Kate Sith.
Oh,
Ketchy? Yeah, Ketchy.
that's true.
He's not a bard. He's a gambler.
Gambler?
I mean, I
He's
could
more
see-
Setzer than a bard. He doesn't. He does have a megaphone, but he doesn't sing.
True.
Yeah, I guess.
True. Gosh, I'm trying to think if there's. I mean, the Bard is a
They're
job
broken.
in 14. But yeah,
Dancers they don't mess with either.
Oh, Dancer is great in 14. I was actually maining Dancer for years before Pictomancer came along. Dancer is really fun in 14.
Dancers and bards in 5. I know we're going to get into gameplay. Sorry,
let's-
Keith, but
yeah, let's-
dancers and yeah.
I mean, we're talking about it. Let's talk about the
Yeah, let's
systems
do
and
it.
gameplay. This basically brings back Final Fantasy V, bringing back the job system. We've talked about it. There's 21 total classes. So we're stuff like we're talking about. The Bard, Samurai, Dragoon, Dancer, Black Mage, Time Mage, Red Mage. This was also the first game that introduced the Blue Mage. And so basically, as you progress through the story, as the crystals shatter into shards, your characters absorb them or put them up their butts, maybe, depending on what's canonical or not. They unlock new jobs. And you earn new abilities through these jobs, through not EXP, but it's not AP. ABP, correct?
JP.
JP.
I think
might be
it
ABP.
might vary depending on the translation.
What you're playing, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you get EXP. It makes your stats go up a little bit, but like basically the AP is what makes things really interesting, and it's how you basically build out your characters. You guys have played Final Fantasy 3, yes?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've only ever finished the DS version.
I'm
But-
so sorry.
My recollection is that the job system, like it doesn't give you as much motivation to like try out different jobs. I think you might get some like stat bonuses for mastering, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be wrong. Like there might be a reason to like master a job and then move on to another, but I don't think you certainly can't like assign abilities from other jobs to your current job, right?
Oh, I hated the job system in
Yeah,
3. I couldn't tell if there's any benefit.
Yeah, it's very superficial in terms of you're just kind of playing the class you want to play. I guess the novelty at the time is like, hey, your characters aren't set. You can change them to whatever you want them to be, but there's not actually like a huge benefit to training up different jobs, which is kind of the main compelling thing about Final Fantasy V.
I mean, my question was, yeah, I mean, what did you like about the improvements of 5 over 3?
Everything. Same.
Jobs. So there's lots of benefits. Remind me, can mimes equip an additional ability? I haven't.
They have this. I think they have the same kind of loadout that Freelancer does, like the exact loadout.
Okay. So you can still only equip one ability, or wait, no, is attack
maybe.
Wait, is attack replaced by mime?
I think it might be.
And then you might be able to do 2 abilities. I'm trying to remember, because in Final Fantasy VI, there's kind of a hidden ability for Go-Go that I think a lot of people don't even know you can do. You like go to the status screen and you can just like assign any other character's ability. You know, give Go-Go Blitz. Like you don't have to.
That was magical.
Blitz.
That's magical to find out, because you would just, I loved abusing Go-Go that way. Give him
Go-Go
magic,
is
and as soon as once one person knows Ultima, you just give them Ultima and tools and Blitz, and the game's over.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah, that's crazy. So I'm trying to remember. It's been so long. I'm trying to remember if mimes have that ability as well. But yeah, for the most part, you just assign one sub job or one sub ability, and so the one that I remember just when I was poring over the different abilities from the manual, I was like, wait, would this work? Can I learn dual wield from a ninja and 4x hit from a ranger and actually get 8 hits? And it was like a big driving force for me that first playthrough, is like to level up ranger and ninja up into the point I could find out. And yes, the answer is you will attack 8 times with the ninja. It's great.
It's so good. This is like, it's one of the, sorry, I'm going to start gushing right now, but it's just like, that's what I like about like this and like Final Fantasy VIII, where it's just like they give you all of these tools. They're basically there more or less from the start. Like you can break the game pretty much as early as you want if you just want to grind a little bit, and we'll kind of talk about grinding a little bit later. And just the amount of combinations that they give you is just, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. The end of the game, if you are playing it a specific way, could just be a complete cakewalk.
The entire game can be a cakewalk. if you know how to play your cards right, just like you said, Final Fantasy VIII. And much like Final Fantasy VIII, and I have to wonder if this is what inspired Final Fantasy VIII, there were challenges in Japan where they would try, maybe this still happens, where they would try to see who could beat the game on the lowest level. I think they got down to level 9. They beat Final Fantasy V on.
Wow. Yeah,
like it got really low.
And you know, for this playthrough, you know, I've actually kind of been avoiding like reading up like what you get each job level, like because I'm kind of like I'm just going either go by memory or just like try different jobs and see what happens. And you know, there've definitely been some that I've put a little time into that have wasted my time, but for Lena/Reyna, I'm definitely going for that that ninja hunter combo. Looking forward to learning either of those skills because it hasn't happened yet. But each job does have their own native abilities, which can be more than one ability. You know, it's your stats, it's the ability to, cast certain spells, or
you could have a white mage that is a summoner.
You can be a Yuna. You can be an Ico.
Yeah. Right.
You can be a dagger. You can do all these things. And the sub ability would actually kind of come back to Final Fantasy 11 to some extent. Instead of like having the sub ability, you have a sub job, and everything that you learned up to half of your main job's level. So let's say you leveled both white mage and black mage to 30. Well, you equip you're a white mage, you equip black mage as your sub job, you get benefits of extra MP and extra intelligence. And you can also cast all the spells that a black mage can cast up to level 15. So that's kind of a evolution of that idea, although I would say more constrained for the MMO environment, where you when you see what someone's sub job is, you kind of like know what they can do. Whereas in Final Fantasy V being kind of a single player game, it's a little more freeform. Do what you want, challenge yourself by making bad combinations if you want, or playing a 4-job Fiesta where you're forced into those bad combinations. I think it's kind of interesting actually how little we think about how weird the term job is for this stuff. Like, we've just kind of come to accept it, but like, why are these things called jobs?
I've been using class and job interchangeably throughout the podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, class is definitely like kind of the broader, more common RPG term, but I was introduced to this first personally. Like I had never played a game to my recollection with like changeable classes. I wasn't really aware of D&D and stuff like that at the time. So Final Fantasy V was, they're jobs. You just call them jobs. Even Dragon Quest, sometimes I'll slip up and say that I'm changing my job in Dragon Quest. Well,
I mean, almost formally they're called job classes.
Oh, is that
so?
Is that so? I mean, the menu, it just says job. But, Final Fantasy fans are so, you were talking earlier about how it's maybe a little less popular than 4 and 6, but people love the job system. Like, I think universally people love the job system. They love to see these classic Final Fantasy classes come back in various forms, and just like we did in our trivia game, kind of wonder like, ooh, what would this character's job be, to the point where, as you all recall, Final Fantasy 14 was not well received in its 1.0 incarnation, and they just used classes, and all of those were called weird things like Lancer and Pugilist and Gladiator and Thaumaturge.
Well, they were probably their Japanese names. and they did a literal translation.
Well, I don't know what the Japanese names are actually, but I don't think that's the case because, they were, calling these jobs all these different things. And one of the first things that Naoki Yoshida did when taking over the project was introduce jobs, and like they are specifically called jobs. They're specifically called the classic classes. But since it kind of had to be like shoehorned into the existing system, all of the original classes later evolve like at level 30 or something into the newer class. So you've got Lancer becomes Dragoon. You've got Conjurer becomes White Mage. Thaumaturge becomes Black Mage. Gladiator becomes Paladin. Gladiator becomes Paladin. Something else becomes Warrior. So you've got your all these archetypes, and now the new jobs are just jobs. Like they don't like have the whole class system evolution for that. But like the Final Fantasy fan base, I think is very tied into these archetypes that were introduced, and a lot of them in Final Fantasy 1 and have kind of like evolved over the series. But I'd say Final Fantasy 3 and 5 were the biggest contributors to expanding like what these iconic jobs are, and people craved to use those archetypes still in the games today. So it was very important for them to like brand the new classes as jobs. They are jobs in Final Fantasy 14, even though it's like a silly name. Like, do I make money by being a time mage? I mean, time mage isn't a job in Final Fantasy 14, so I don't know why I use that as an example. But like, I don't know, like a lot of these, I just think it's funny that like, they're is a thief a job? Is a mystic knight a job? How does a mystic knight make money? How does a blue mage make money? Samurai gives money away. Like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know, a job. It just doesn't feel like what these things are to me. It's a strange localization, I think. Or I actually don't know what they call it, what the Japanese term is for these, but it's always been job, and we don't really question it, and we carry it forward today. And I think that's the legacy of how popular this system is in this game. And Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, I think that's what definitely popularized it here in the West, was Final Fantasy Tactics, because we didn't have 5 for a while. My thoughts generally here, like what I think about it over 3 and a lot of the benefits of it. First, you want to kind of talk about the origins, because the origins of the system is not Final Fantasy 3. It is wizardry. And if you want to know how that works in wizardry, I think they call them classes there. I don't think they call them jobs. They may call them jobs. I'm not sure. But you pick your race, and each race gets their class. And as you go through the game, you level up your class, like you level up your character and in that class. And then the way to actually beat the game, to improve your characters beyond a certain point, is to do a class reset. So if you played the entire game as a warrior, you have a warrior and an archer, or I don't think they have archers, but a warrior, a thief, and a mage, and there's another class. I think they have 4 classes because it's D&D based, of course, so they use those basic ones. I think one might be elf. I'd have to look it up. I don't know. But you can switch your job midway through the game in wizardry and reset your character back to level 1 and have all the stats. But they get to keep all of their abilities. And then you get to level them back up and they gain more stats. So that's part of the entire trick to playing a wizardry game, is knowing the best time to change your character's class and how they keep those abilities with them when they change that class over and what they have. you're seeing that here. You actually also see it in Dragon Quest 3.
I was about to say, that's interesting, because like resetting is like really key to pushing beyond the limits of your starting class.
Yes, and that's where Dragon Quest 3 gets it, is from wizardry. So here in Dragon Quest 5, in Final Fantasy 5, you essentially have an evolution of that, where you get to level. You're not leveling up your character with the class. You're leveling up the class independently of the character.
And in a lot of ways, I think that makes this arguably the most elegant version of that system.
Yes.
Because your character has a level independent of the class or job, and there's no penalty for like bouncing around, trying a different class for one battle or something, you know.
Mm-hmm. And in Final Fantasy 3, you didn't get to keep anything. And like what I remember from Final Fantasy 3, and this was mostly diluted in the later releases. And so like the NES version of Final Fantasy 3 has never come to the West in any form. So this is why I think it's not really talked about, is that the more you leveled up a class in a certain field, the more job points it took in order to swap your class if it was the opposite of that job field. So if you leveled up your warrior the entire time and you wanted to make your warrior a black mage for whatever reason, and you didn't have the job points to do it, you had to wait until you had those points to swap them. And then they had job sickness, which meant that they couldn't perform at the level of their current class until they recovered from it after fighting a certain amount of battles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
weird. The one thing that I hated about Final Fantasy 3 too is that there were certain bosses that were basically roadblocks if you didn't have the correct job picked.
Yeah, Dragoon. The Dragoon fight is the big one. Yes. Oh, so just going back to wizardry. Here are the classes in wizardry: fighter, mage, priest, thief, lord, samurai, ninja, bishop. Interesting job set.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there is a very good. I've not played much of it, but it seems very cool and has a lot of cool options. There's a very cool, like modern version of wizardry made by Digital Eclipse.
Yes. It's a remake of the original.
Yeah, and it's like basically run by the same rules, but you could have like a lot of modifiers.
Is that the one with the waifus?
No. That's Labyrinth of Lost Souls.
But I also think how the job system is so ingrained itself in a lot of different aspects of Final Fantasy. Something that's always been kind of wild to me as someone whose MMO experience pretty much only extends to Square Enix MMOs. It's like wild to me that the ability to change your job is kind of is to my knowledge a bit of a signature aspect of the Final Fantasy MMOs. Like
Yes.
MMOs aren't coming out in large numbers these days, I guess. But like World of Warcraft, it blows my mind that so many people are willing to play a game where if you want to try a different class, you make a whole other character. I mean, maybe there's like tools or maybe you pay a fee or something to work around that today. I don't know, but like I know that like at its core, from back in the day, like each character is what it is.
EverQuest too.
Yeah,
and that's
like,
EverQuest too.
So like I like it's such a luxury to me, and like I mentioned, it's like the ability to combine the level you have learned in one skill or in one job and apply it as a sub job in 11 is hugely important to that game. So it's like very much at the core, like that is easily changing your job is very important in Final Fantasy 11 and 14. And yeah, it's crazy to me that you like wouldn't carry over your progress if you wanted to make try another character. Like you'd have, I don't know. Sounds miserable to me.
One of the other things I really like about this system too is to the basic observer, to the layman observer, someone just walking into this game and really not knowing what to do. which is what I think most people, their first experience with Final Fantasy V generally is. You don't know truly how to take advantage of the class until you play more of it and you start seeing how they combine. A lot of these jobs really complement each other very well, but you wouldn't think about that because some of these jobs look undesirable. Like you see a Beastmaster and you're thinking to yourself, why would I want to be a Beastmaster? Control kind of sucks. I don't like it. It doesn't really do anything for me. It's not that great. And then you combine it with Blue Mage and you start to realize, oh my God, this game is broken. It is incredibly broken, and I have just broken the game wide open. Or Bard and Dancer that we were talking about before. Two classes that people would like run away from in previous games. More specifically, Bard, because you had Gilbert in Final Fantasy IV, who a lot of people think sucks. And he does suck in Final Fantasy IV, the original version. He's horrible. So you see a Bard in Final Fantasy V, and you're thinking to yourself, this class is shit. I'm running away from it the entire time. It's probably the best supporting class with Dancer in the entire game. Well, there's only two of them. Those are the two. But like in addition to Time Mage, they are also broken because you just have them sing. There's a song that has your characters level up as they sing. So if you just have them sing the entire time and you defend and you keep your characters alive, they can become like level 99 in a matter of minutes, making your party nearly indestructible. So like the last boss becomes a cinch.
That's not permanent, is it?
For the battle, it is.
For the battle, that's
only for the battle.
I'm about to say, wait, do I need to be trying this? Can I get to die in one battle? Something that I also kind of forgot about and was delighted. As far as I can tell, like haste never runs out until you die. Like that in and of itself is pretty broken, right?
Yeah, it's learning how to manipulate these classes and combine them. As you were saying, hey, why can't I be a ninja with 4x hit? Like, why can't I do that?
Yeah. Well, you can't. There is no why not, because you can.
Yeah,
although
you can.
All this flexibility, kind of can actually lead in some ways to doing very predictable things, right? And I think that's where the appeal of the 4-job fiesta comes in, where you are locked to 4 jobs that you might not be likely to use in tandem on a normal run of the game. And I really like the fact that under those circumstances, you are kind of forced to figure out how to make those classes work for you over the course of the game. That's actually one of the reasons I like Final Fantasy IV so much, and other games that kind of the characters just are what they are, and that the characters come and go with story points, story plot. Because I like the idea that the game is just kind of handing over to me. Here's what you got to work with. Make it work. That's my challenge to you. Make these characters work together. Make these classes work. I think a lot of people like prefer the flexibility. And I can go either way. I like preset characters. I like kind of coming up with what I want to do. But I think that the 4-job fiesta concept is really appealing because in a way it kind of brings that Final Fantasy IV feel back, where it's like, okay, here's what you got to work with, make it work. So I think that could be really interesting. So,
I mean, we've all been talking about just how like broad and how flexible the job system is and how you can truly break it. And I mean, the three of us have played Final Fantasy V plenty of times, and we kind of it's kind of second nature to kind of know exactly what to do. You guys are probably better at it than I am. I've always just kind of casually played Final Fantasy V, but I do kind of know, just how to get through it if I need to get through it, I don't know a lot of the incredibly broken builds that are out there. I've never really followed a guide or anything like that. And so I think like one of the reasons, why somebody might not like this game as much as we do is that if you don't know what you're doing, this game can feel pretty grindy. because like the real difficulty curve is really just knowing your way around the job system, really. So it's both. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, kind of, as far as the gameplay department goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that this game actually makes grinding compelling. You know, you especially early on, where it's not so much job points or ability points between job levels. You're kind of like, ooh, I really want to get this ability from this. Like, that's worth just run in circles for a little bit. You know, normally that's not something you know, some people say they love grinding. They find it relaxing. But normally that's not what you want. That's often a turnoff for people in a lot of games, but there really is a compelling kind of carrot on a stick aspect to the job system where grinding ain't so bad. Like, you actually are kind of like, yeah, I you know what? I could spend 10 minutes to earn this skill from this class and then change jobs. I'm going to sneeze. Or not.
I lost my train of thought. I
Mr.
think you're
Chupon
right.
Sneezed them all away.
Yes, he did. Damn you, Chupon. I think you're right though, because this was the reason I put down Final Fantasy V the first time I did when I tried to commit to it. Was this game later on progressively adds more and more skill checks to see if you know what you're supposed to be doing, that you know that you're supposed to be experimenting a little bit with these classes and not just probably, you know, just sticking everyone in one class the entire time. Because I remember I was like, well, I'm going to have a monk, a black mage, a red mage, and like the samurai is pretty cool. And I just did that. And then I ran the boss that gave me fits the first time I played it, which is funny because I now find it one of the easier boss battles when I make it there, is those 4 elemental jellies that you fight in the forest that X-Death is from.
I just fought those before this recording, and I died on my first fight. But once I saw what to do, I realized, okay, Ferris has a fire sword that's healing one of them. Lena's weapons are healing another one for some reason. They cast Fire Aga. So yeah, I need to cast Haste. I need to cast Reflect on as many characters, or not Reflect. I mean, maybe Reflect would work.
Carbuncle.
I wanted to heal. I cast Shell on as many characters as possible. Like, I'm sure there's like a considerably easier way to do it, but like I was able to make it work with what I had, but I still had to suffer death once before I realized, I did have to use a little bit of care in that fight. I had to use my skills.
I mean, like I said, I played through Final Fantasy V rather casually, and even though I know more or less what I'm doing, these are some of the harder bosses in the series. Probably not since, I don't know, maybe like Final Fantasy 2, maybe?
Probably. Like NES 2.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'm honestly playing this pretty casually right now because, like I said, I'm not really looking stuff up. I'm kind of just going by memory, and there's some things. I was talking to someone else. I'm like, do you really ever get anything useful from Berserker? And he was like, nah, really just the stats for Mime and Freelancer, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to use Berserker anymore. No real need to.
Yeah, some classes you don't really need to. That's true.
But like, I was just, I was just kind of gambling on Berserker maybe being useful, but
yeah, just to go back why the bosses are hard. I do like the fact that it's just hard because they're hard for the sake of being difficult. Like, you have to think a little bit about your approach to these bosses. And again, there is an expectation that you've been playing around with the job system, that you've been finding something cool to do, as opposed to just sticking your characters in 1 or 2 classes that you just personally like and play the game that way. Because you can get away with that for a while. Early games definitely designed around that because, what are you supposed to do? You only have 4 classes. You don't really have any job levels unless you like just grind for a bit. But yeah, the later game demands that you give its system respect to a certain degree. It's not expecting you to be an expert, but it is expecting you to care. Like, why else are you playing this game? This is what we designed you to do. Please do it, or you're going to feel some pain. And that's what I get from Final Fantasy V. You have to be patient with it. And if you're not willing to be patient, you're probably one of these people that come away from Final Fantasy V and do not like it.
My question for you guys is, since we're talking about bosses, did you guys ever try to fight any of the super bosses in this game? Which is Omega and Shinryu, I believe.
I mean,
Shinryu.
tried, yes. Beat, I can't remember.
Yeah, I've never tried to do any of the end game stuff in this before, so yeah, I haven't tried myself, but figured I'd
Omega,
ask.
Here's the thing,
by the way.
Here's the thing that sucks about. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Omega, by the way, is weirdly hugely important to Final Fantasy XIV's plot. Like, you wouldn't expect it at first when you first see it, but then like by the time you get to Endwalker, which is like kind of the conclusion to the main original story, and then it kind of like is building up to something new after that. Like you kind of get to the last area and you really realize like how like literally it pretty much is the Final Fantasy V Omega, the way that they kind of do a little bit of multiverse stuff, and it definitely does crazy things in the history of your world and the universe. It's wild.
I do have a retro recollection here that will segue us into story and presentation pretty nicely. It is from Phil of Deleted Saves, who says, I played this on a PS1 re-release. While I never completed it, even following a guide, I did enjoy the job system to a point. The story was fairly boilerplate but serviceable. It just lost me after having to grind to build up enough points to get the job class abilities outside of their respective jobs. Otherwise, a decent enough Final Fantasy title sandwiched between more well-known titles if you need something to play. So stepping into that boilerplate story, I mean, we've kind of gone over it. It's nothing great. It's certainly there. This is basically the last game to have like the traditional, I guess, crystal story, even though technically the crystals are destroyed in this game. And we've kind of been all over the place as far as like the characters go and the villains themselves. Just to go over the cast real quick, formally, are we over the butts jokes, Chris? Can we put that behind us?
That's his name. His name is Butts. Yeah, we can definitely put it behind you, just like the crystals.
I have always gone with Bart's myself, but for this run, just because Corey is very passionate about the name Butts, and since I did stream the beginning of this playthrough, I named him Butts just for Corey.
Nice.
Corey's a Butts man.
Oh, Chris, did you break something to show the class?
Let them in our. This is the manual.
I have that too.
Yes, this is the Japanese manual. Let me see if I can find his name in here.
I mean, it's like Baksu or something, right?
They named him a different name in the manual. That is hilarious.
Jeff.
Huh.
It's
Is it Square?
Yeah. His name's Square. Yeah. They named him Square. Yeah.
What the hell?
In the manual, his name is Square.
I mean, he is lame.
That didn't help me.
He is a bit of a square, for sure.
He is a bit of a square. Yeah, but I do think his name in Japan is Butsu. It is Butts. It is actually Butts.
Well,
Butsu.
a lot of people know him as Bartz. I name him Bartz all the time.
I mean, he's Bartz in Dissidia.
It's canon.
Bartz Klauser.
And we also have Lena, Galuf, or Galoof. Galuf. I've always said Galuf.
Me and my friends back in the day said Galoof, but I've also heard like Galuf. I don't know. Final Fantasy 12 actually has a ship named after him, and I believe the voiceover in that game says Galuf, but then again,
Garafu.
I've heard various Final Fantasy games say Ramu and Rama, so I don't think it's necessarily consistent.
And then we have Ferris, and then we have Kryl, who joins the party after Galuf
Karuru
dies. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
For a 30-year-old game.
Actually dies.
I was actually quite surprised that Galuf died the first time I played. I did not know that was going to happen.
You know, the thing that I love about Final Fantasy games that apparently Final Fantasy fans, people who call themselves Final Fantasy fans, didn't realize until Final Fantasy VII, is they kill off a lot of characters.
They do.
In the first 6 games.
Yeah.
A lot of them die.
Yeah. It should not have been that big of a surprise that someone was going to die in 7, you know?
No, it shouldn't have been.
More of a surprise no one died in 8.
That is a big surprise. Someone should have died in 8. A lot of them should have died in 8, actually.
I was going to say.
You know, so I have to ask, is it just me, or is anyone else bothered by the fact that, like, all of the other character sprites, like, look, you know, straight ahead, straight to the left, and Kryl is, like, staring at you, looking into your soul?
It is Japan.
Oh, now that you've mentioned it.
She's like, everyone else is, like, looking at the battle, and Kryl is just, like, staring at you. It's kind of creepy.
I was going to say, like, I mean, we can kind of talk about the graphics a little bit now, but, like, I love how individualized all of the sprites actually are.
Oh,
like, as opposed to, like, with the job classes and stuff like that.
Totally
but
insane.
Now that you brought up the Kryl thing, I'm not going to be able to ignore it any other time I play the game.
No.
But by the way,
I didn't think about that either.
More Final Fantasy 14 fun facts. There is a character in the game named Kryl, who for most of the storyline, she wears it's her white mage that has like the cat ears, right?
Yes.
I think. Yeah, most of the game she's wearing that. She's not strictly a white mage, I don't think. But then when she actually starts playing a bigger role in the story in the most recent expansion, Dawn Trail, she switches to Pictomancer. And some interesting twists with her character that kind of actually tie into her Final Fantasy 14 inspiration as well.
I will say, you guys talked a lot about the cast and kind of what you thought about them a little bit earlier on in the episode. I bit my tongue a bit, just a bit. I kind of like the fact that, like, even though these characters aren't very well defined or not as defined as the 1s and 4, I like that it's just like a really weird cast of characters that are just going on an adventure together. Like, it feels like a bunch of like random, it feels like when you make friends with a bunch of random coworkers at your job, and like, you know, one's like 74 years old, the other person's like 23, and you're all hanging out at a bar together, just, you know, get along. You have really nothing in common otherwise, other than the job that you're doing, but you still get along, you know?
But then it turns out that everyone but Bartz is royalty.
Right.
I thought he was some sort of, I mean, like, not royalty, but his dad was.
He's like a chosen hero
Dawn
type of
Dawn
archetype
warrior.
eventually.
Yeah. I would kind of disagree with you, Keith. I think the characters are pretty well defined.
There's
I think
they have their there's like a what do I want? There's like a larger arc in Final Fantasy. I say that lightly. A larger arc in Final Fantasy IV, right? Whereas like there's more like moments. There's like each character in this game has like a moment. I wouldn't really say they have a character arc.
I mean, I would say that you know, Galuf, however you say his name, like overall, like kind of takes the top spot just because he's, you know, especially after you learn he's a king, you know, just how like kind of casual and goofy, you know, he is, and you know how casual he is with his speech. By the way, this is something I've been thinking about ever since I've started my replay. Like, if there was a Final Fantasy V movie, like
Which there is.
Not, well, there kind of is, yeah. But if there was like a like American made live action movie, like I literally cannot imagine Galuf being anyone but Jeff Bridges. Like that has to be Galuf. Like that would be the most perfect casting of all time.
Or Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell could do it, but Jeff Bridges would be a fair bit better. I did think of Kurt Russell as well, but I feel like it would have to be Jeff
So
Bridges.
yeah, I interrupted you, Chris. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think they are well developed. I think you're right in the fact that they don't have arcs. They don't really have great arcs. Like, what's the major conflict of them all? Well, they are all on a journey to save the world. That's their arc.
They're chosen by the crystals. Like they almost don't have a choice. Like they're the only ones who can do it.
They don't really have an arc. But they do have a personality, and they do have stories behind them that I think are more compelling than the majority of the characters in Final Fantasy IV. And some of the characters in Final Fantasy VI. Not all of them in Final Fantasy VI. I think Final Fantasy VI takes character development to another level. But I think you're right. Like, they're companions. They're almost your friends. And it does, when you really think about it, that's what makes Bart's, like, worst character in retrospect, because he doesn't really have anything other than his dad, and his mom died, and then his dad died, and then he just journeyed on his own. There's nothing beyond that. But then you have Ferris, and you have Lena, and Ferris is like, she gets like, they think she's dead. She gets picked up by pirates. She changes her name because she has a lisp, has to pretend she's a man, befriends a sea creature, loses that sea creature, and re-finds her sister. And her sister has to come with the terms that her dad is like losing his mind and has to cope with the fact that she might have to lead a kingdom. Then you have Galuf, that's developed like he is this goofy person. But he's also the king of a kingdom, and he's just kind of like your buddy that wants to be treated normally. And then you have Kryl kind of sucks. Her development is just, she's Galuf's kid, grandchild. But aside from that, like, you're right. This is kind of like the ultimate buddy trip. This is kind of Final Fantasy 15, but without like the dude bro thing. This is just a bunch of friends hanging out, having a good time. And guess what? There's no romantic interest pitched. Like, Bart's doesn't end up with Ferris or Lena.
Early on, there's the stuff with before. It's not even a reveal.
Yeah,
the whole
Galuf
reveal with Ferris is like pretty bad.
Yeah, Galuf definitely teases Bart's, because the PS1 translation, I think, says you know you're only coming along because you've got the hots for her.
And that might be what they said, but they never implied there's anything beyond there. Yes, Bart's does think that his female companions are attractive. Like, that's not disputed, but it's not like they have the hots for him, or there's some sort of reward for him at the end of the game.
They're just traveling along. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the name of, isn't the main theme of the game something along those lines, like traveling along or something?
There's like God, let me pull that song up. Final Fantasy Ahead on Our Way.
Ahead on Our Way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
That's such a great title, honestly, for
Kind of what the story is.
You know, kind of what the story is, and kind of what those characters are to each other.
Because Bart's is
One of
even
the last
like
tracks in the game is called Dear Friends,
which is the name,
which is also the name of its arranged album.
Which I really love the vocal version of Bart's Hometown in that CD.
despite the characters not really having the same sort of arc, which is more of like a story issue than anything. I mean, do you guys prefer how dynamic the cast is? You know, even compared to 4?
I mean, you know, I'll say this. I've got perler bead magnets of the Final Fantasy V cast on my fridge, and I don't have perler bead sprites of any other Final Fantasy cast on my fridge. Mostly because, like, in a lot of ways, their personality kind of is in maybe some ways revealed from their varying costumes for each of the jobs, right? And I just kind of picked ones that I thought looked cool for each one. Like, you know, Bart's is a blue mage, Lena is a white mage, Galoof is a ranger, Ferris is a red mage, in my fridge versions at least. You know, so yeah, I mean, I feel like you can kind of, you can sort of see what these characters are, but you can also like lean into what you want them to be as well. So, you know, there can be an appeal to the more kind of blank slate characters, but at the same time, they're not. I mean, they absolutely have their personalities. You know, Bart's and Lena are maybe a little more dry and square, but you know, Galoof and Ferris are pretty fun for sure.
I think the interactions with your party is more compelling in many ways than 4. And I think another part of that too is how quickly your party members in 4 can come and go. Whereas in Final Fantasy V, they're with you the entire time.
Which is
like,
actually
that's your party.
Which is actually something that I really liked about Final Fantasy 13. Like, Fang is not part of that, but it really felt like a coming together in the intro sequence of basically your full cast. Well, Fang in a lot of ways is like Kryl then, right? The latecomer to the party. But for the most part, your core cast like comes together like almost immediately, like characters that have no business really teaming up. And, you know, and then they're all like essentially chosen by a sort of crystal-like thing, right? And that was actually something that really gripped me at the beginning of Final Fantasy 13. I was like, oh, this feels like the beginning of 5, like these very different characters kind of all coming together. And, you know, we're talking about how, you know, they're people who don't really have a lot in common in Final Fantasy V, but they band together and they're just buddies anyway. That was actually always something that interests me in Final Fantasy 13 because, especially as the party splits up, in a lot of ways, the character pairings are perhaps the least likely ones that Final Fantasy 13 follows along with. But of course, in the case of Final Fantasy V, the party's all there from the beginning. But I think that's important because it gives you the ability straight from the get-go to really experiment with the jobs and do what you want with them. The characters are kind of a canvas for the gameplay more than anything else.
Yeah. And I would have to challenge you, Keith, if you think Final Fantasy IV's characters are better. Tell me what's better about Edge and Rosa in terms of their character development over the characters in Final Fantasy V.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying that I think Final Fantasy IV's characters are necessarily better. In fact, I stated earlier in the podcast, I feel like 4 and 5 are kind of on the same level. Like, I feel like I think 5 gets a bad rap overall story wise, and I can understand. I get it, but I also think a lot of people, and this is why I have a retro gaming podcast, may have some rose tinted glasses for Final Fantasy 4 or 2 or whatever. And so I think naturally they're gravitating more towards, oh, this is, a better told story overall because this is the one that I played, and I didn't play 5 until 2007 or whenever the GBA port got released, We've kind of talked about him a little bit, the antagonist, X-Death. I don't really think there's too much else to say about X-Death because he's not really a real antagonist, but
yeah, I mean, maybe y'all can explain to me because I've beaten this game twice. I just got to kind of a key story point. I'm about to storm X-Death's castle, but honestly, like his motivations and everything make such a minimal impression. Like I know there's something about the void, like he just wants to destroy everything. Is that about the size of it? Can y'all remind me of what his overarching goal
he looks
is?
cool. He looks cool as hell. And what if he like killed things? That's
okay.
That's X-Death. What if he just wanted to kill everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I know he wants to control the void, which is, again, that's actually kind of a concept that's in several Final Fantasy games and is actually kind of used in certain situations, most notably 14, to kind of explain how there could be connections between games. So a bit of a Final Fantasy multiverse.
Strangers of Paradise does that actually.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of used as a way to, in 14 especially, it's used as a way to kind of traverse the void between worlds. They're actually still trying to kind of figure out how that works in the story as of the current time. But yeah, it's an interesting idea that's kind of been used in this series elsewhere, but it's just kind of like Excess just wants to make everything nothing, right? Kind of, because he's a tree that was like made from like sealing away evil spirits in a tree over many, many years, and whoops, maybe we shouldn't have sealed all the evil spirits within one tree.
I just want to
now you've got
highlight here how ridiculous it sounds, where he's like, he was a tree. It's just...
yeah. He was a tree.
And he's like Groot because he can die but become a splinter and put himself in cryo and
yeah. I mean, he sure don't look like a tree. He don't look like a tree until the final battle. Like he's like a humanoid sorcerer, but and he's like kind of got like a goofy sense of humor. Like he doesn't like really talk in kind of like a kind of buttoned up or mysterious or way. He's just kind of like more like a tokusatsu kind of villain or something, he doesn't seem like something born of a tree.
Yeah. I love the interaction between him and Butts, when Butts walks up to him, is like, I won't let you get away with this. And he's like, do you even know what you're trying to stop me from getting away with? And Butts goes,
neither does the player.
No. He's not a great villain for villain's sake. He's not really all that well
his
developed.
music is pretty good though. Like
it is really good.
I mean, it's kind of hammy, like his normal theme, like when he appears, the dun 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 dun. But then that theme like kind of like really comes into its own in like the two like phases of the final boss fight. So
I like how they enter that boss fight too. It sounds like I think it sounds like horses' hooves just charging.
River dance. I've always thought river dance.
I think the Emperor X-Death reminds me a lot of the Emperor from Final Fantasy 2. And they do a lot of similar things.
Yeah.
You have to remember, like in Final Fantasy 2, the Emperor actually destroys and nukes towns out of existence, so you can never go back to them again. X-Death does the same thing. The Emperor dies in Final Fantasy 2 and then comes back from hell to become Satan or whatever. X-Death kind of does the same thing. You kill X-Death and then he implants himself in cryo and becomes Neo X-Death. which is very similar to what they kind of did in Final Fantasy IV with Zemus and Zeramis. Yeah. Yeah, they were on something back then when it came to final boss conventions. I do like the fact, though, compared to a lot of the other Final Fantasy games, that the main antagonist is your main antagonist throughout the entire game, as opposed to them just changing it up in the middle for funsies. Because, of course, in Final Fantasy III, I don't even know if you know who the main antagonist in Final Fantasy III is for most of the game. It's like just evil incarnate. Is the fight like dark cloud?
Yeah, I mean you're chasing
what
is it like is it Emperor Zandi or
something like that?
Yeah, and then like just the dark cloud appears out of nowhere at the end, much like Final Fantasy IX.
Well, I also want to bring up the fact that,
and then Final Fantasy IV, Golbez. Yeah.
I also want to bring up the fact that I kind of name dropped him earlier, but there is kind of like another like I guess pseudo villain in Gilgamesh, which I think this was his first appearance in the series too, and he's kind of a villain, but also he's like comedic relief as well.
Yes,
I love him. Has a Hawaii 5-0 theme song and everything.
Yeah, Gilgamesh is fantastic, and Square Enix knows it. They know everyone loves Gilgamesh. They, love to bring him back. They love to make him goofy. Remind me, is it Final Fantasy VIII? Like, I know there's a game where Odin dies.
That's 8.
And isn't it Gilgamesh that kills him?
Cypher kills 8? Odin, and then in the same battle, Gilgamesh comes and takes care of Cypher. He doesn't kill him, but that's how the battle ends.
And then, even Final Fantasy V, like a game that in theory should have nothing to do with Gilgamesh. Well, they bring him back. They've got the Battle on the Big Bridge theme, and they know he's a beloved character. They know everyone loves the Battle on the Big Bridge theme. He has minor roles in Final Fantasy XIV, mostly revolving around a series of side quests that are very much inspired by extremely cheesy anime tropes. They lean into the Gilgamesh goofiness big time in other games. So this is
the best line in the game. Enough expository banter. Now we fight like men and ladies who dress like men. For Gilgamesh, it is morphing time.
Gilgamesh is great. He's just
And then, of course, as far as like visuals and music and sound design, of course, Nobuo Uematsu returns to do the soundtrack here. Yeah, I think it was you, Try, who said that. Was it? Maybe it was Chris. I don't remember. Some of the songs not as memorable overall, but I feel like it's still like the songs that are really good.
Really good.
Battle on the Big Bridge are phenomenal.
And the dragon music is great. Dragon and airship, all that's. I mean, overall, it's like still like a 8 out of 10 soundtrack. I'd say it's a little low for Uematsu, a bit of a low point. I feel like, I like the main theme, but like the first overworld theme isn't that good, and the battle theme is I think one of the least good. The main
this kind of ties into visuals too, but like every time I see the opening of just Bart's riding his chocobo, it is overlapped with the Final Fantasy logos overlapping that, and it's playing the theme.
It's really cool.
like every time I see that, I'm instantly transported to the first time I emulated this in 1996 or whatever.
Oh,
like, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, and that is, a great main theme, I think. It's just that like that the first overworld rendition of that is like, just I don't know, something about the way the drum samples are just I mean it's not bad, but it's not amazing. But that actually reminds me of something that I think is really cool about the entire Super Nintendo era of Final Fantasy is that there are at least 2 world maps in every single Super Nintendo Final Fantasy. And they, as game graphics became more complicated, that seemed to be a concession that they made that, that would just be too big for future games. They kind of do a bit of it in Final Fantasy 14, but they can do it because they're MMOs it's an MMO with expansions and stuff. But the fact that there's like multiple worlds that you go to with different overworlds, different world maps. I always thought that was such a cool aspect of that era of Final Fantasy. They've got different, themes, different musical themes. So I always felt something was missing when they kind of, I understand why due to the complexity, but I thought that was just such a special thing that they did in that era.
I think one of the reasons I generally agree with Try here that this is my least favorite of the 3 Super Nintendo Final Fantasy soundtracks. I think one of the reasons might be that a lot of the Final Fantasy soundtracks just in general are more associated with slightly more dreary undertones. And I think that's when Uematsu is at his best. When he's trying to match the energy of the game, and the game is more on a downer side or has more of a kind of more of a depressing overall feel to it. Cause I mean, I don't really, Final Fantasy 3 kind of withstanding, because I think like once the Pixel remaster came out, it's like, oh yeah, this is easily the best soundtrack of the Nintendo, the NES ones. And I think that's just because of technological advancements too. Like the dreary ones, like Final Fantasy 2's soundtrack is head and shoulders above 1's, like bar none. It's like way better, a marked improvement. And that's just because it has more emotion behind it, more of like this just dreariness. Same with kind of Final Fantasy 5 to open up as kind of like this mysterious wonder in a way. But there's also some serious, more darker undertones very early on. It establishes itself. And 6 definitely is just kind of depressing. But Final Fantasy 5 is very upbeat. I think that's something that needs to be said about the plot overall too. It's I wouldn't say upbeat, but lighthearted. Yeah. It's more whimsical. And that kind of goes along with the musical score as well. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's very good. It's a solid soundtrack. It has some really great tunes. But I think one of the reasons it doesn't stick out compared to the other ones is because it is more whimsical. And I think whimsical soundtracks just don't stick with people as well as the more emotionally impacted ones. Even though there are some more emotional tracks in here for sure. Just overall, the tracks you're hearing in general are the more whimsical ones, and I think that doesn't stick with people as well. That could be it. It didn't for me. It just didn't hit as well with like the other tracks.
Yeah, and I think that whimsy really kind of follows along with the visuals of the game as well, because this is probably like, as you said earlier, Chris, like this world doesn't seem as well defined as some of the other Final Fantasy games, but there are interesting places. Like there's an entire town full of like werewolves. Like where else would you get that? Like that's so Final Fantasy. Like I love it, so there are like aspects of this game where it's like, yeah, it does feel like you're on an adventure, and there's all these.
Obviously, they're limited to some extent by just the memory of the cartridge, and it gets expensive to make more of that, and they're using up a ton of that memory for all of these different job costumes. Right? It's pretty amazing they did that, but I still think they managed to have something of an identity for a lot of the towns, like especially you've got like Karnak, the Fire Town, feels very different from, Waltz, the Water Town, when it's got, lots of water flowing through it and stuff. So, before Final Fantasy VII, they didn't really have a lot of visual distinction between towns. There was a little bit of that in 6, but and a little bit in 4 as well, but much more limited for what they could really achieve with just limited tile sets, right? But they tried to some extent. But yeah, you're just like your random small towns that don't aren't super important to the plot. They're just kind of a place to stop at, buy some magic and armor, sleep at the inn, get a little information about, you might find this to the south or this to the west. Those towns definitely not terribly memorable.
I think it might be the most colorful Final Fantasy.
I think you're right. I'd have to look at 4 and 5 side by side, but like in my head, this is just like a much more saturated primary colors kind of game compared to even to 4.
This is like closer to. This looks closer to 6 than 4 does look closer to 5. Like it's not remarkably better than 4, but it's, like I said, it's much closer to the artwork and the sprite work and stuff that they were doing in 6. Like 4 is kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like Dragon Quest. Like, it's obviously better than Dragon Quest 5. But yeah,
4
I
has
don't know
kind
how
of
to
a Final
explain
Fantasy 7 thing going on with it, by the way, I think, where the character sprites on the outside world don't look that good, and then you get into the battle and they look a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
5 doesn't do that. Like the sprites you see out on like your screen are much better and better defined than they are in 4. And they like look like they match up really well with their sprites in battle. That's cool.
Galoof's hair color notwithstanding.
Sure.
But you're absolutely right. Like, Cecil in 4 in particular is I think a very strange looking overworld sprite. Like, he's got like just like his, like, they didn't really seem to know how to represent his hair,
Link.
Yeah. There's just like some weird, like, pinkish swishes going through it. It's like, and like their clothes, like what even do their, like, just a few pixels of clothes represent? But I do think of it more closely related. I mean, you're right. There are some improvements of bringing those elements, kind of unifying the battle sprites and the overworld sprites in terms of color and design. But at the same time, the basic, like, overworld sprite size remained the same through 5. The basic battle sprite size remained the same through 5. And then 6 was where they really took a left turn with it. Of course, it was just for that one game, really. But, they actually kind of made the sprites a bit of a middle ground between the two. They weren't as big as the battle sprites up through 5, but they were bigger than the overworld sprites up through 5. And they kind of unified that look between the characters, and they look at the same regardless of whether it's a story scene, exploration scene, battle scene. They always look the same. And I like that sprite style of 6 a lot. Like, I definitely have some love for the pre-6 sprite stylings, but I do think visually 6 is much more of a masterwork.
I would agree. I mean, 6 is a big departure from, I think, really the look of Final Fantasy. I think 6 is actually the big departure from the Final Fantasy formula, to be honest. A lot of people say that's 7. Again, different story for a different time. But one of the ways that you could really see that here in Final Fantasy V is that this is kind of the last game to have that through line for like NPC sprites like scholars and white mages and black mages and stuff like that you see as starting like in 3 and 4 and 5 that keep carrying over, that make it very observable that you're playing a game from the same series, even if the systems are different. They have a lot of carryover. They have a lot of visual identifiers, and many of those just kind of drop out in Final Fantasy VI, and they just completely overhaul it. So I think that's also something that makes Final Fantasy V very special, is it does feel like kind of the last vestibule of the visual style of the original Final Fantasies before they went in the more cinematic direction.
Do you think Bart's like general character design was meant to evoke the Final Fantasy 1 warrior? Because I always like kind of felt like he just kind of looked like the Final Fantasy 1 warrior turned into a character.
I can see it.
I don't know. I would have to look at the Amano design.
Well,
if I'm just like looking at the sprite, then that's completely
I'm talking
different.
about sprites more so than the Amano design. Bart's might be like the character who is most different from Amano design to in-game design of like the entire series.
Yeah,
he looks nothing like his Amano design. They do use it in that PS1 FMV, but like that has never been my image of Bart's at all.
I mean, I'm looking at his Dissidia design, and it is very good. Like,
it is
just not even the same.
The Dissidia design is like kind of similar to the Amano design, but he has brown hair.
Close.
Does he have brown hair in Dissidia? I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, because the Amano design is white hair, and is represented that way in the PS1 FMV. It kind of feels like he's not really the character designer though, because in game, the characters like they use different colors. They're wearing different clothes because like, how do you even, convey those clothes as a sprite, as a 16 by 16 sprite, as is the case in FF5 and before.
Well, you get Tetsuya Nomura to do that for you, which this was
Tetsuya
the first game
Nomura
that he actually
cleans
worked
it
on,
up,
but he did the
yeah.
monsters, not the main characters. I love his monster designs. I think he's a phenomenal monster creator. I do not like his belt-laden, big-shoot characters at all, really.
No, I agree with you. The monster designs in this game are really nice, too. There is a character that looks exactly like Aerith.
Really?
A monster, yes.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
It's a flower girl.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the caterpillar body is a little weird, but yeah.
It's a dress. She's wearing a pink dress, and she's about to put it on Cloud.
It looks like a caterpillar from the thumbnail. Well, I did say that this wouldn't be a 4-hour podcast. I never said anything about it being a 3-hour podcast. 2.5 hours with editing, maybe. So why don't we finish this off with our final thoughts, summarize our thoughts on Final Fantasy V and whether or not we would recommend anybody play it. And I mean, I feel like we're all kind of on the same wavelength here. I would be interested. I'm obviously interested to hear if we all think differently. I mean, I kind of led off with my thoughts up top, so I guess I'll go first real quick. And that, yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out Final Fantasy V. Is it like the best Final Fantasy game as far as a story goes? Not really. The story is pretty thin, and I think we talked about that. I do think, like I said, it's on par with Final Fantasy IV as far as story goes. Like the characters, obviously, they don't have the same arc as those characters, but I think it's fun. I like this cast of characters. They're dynamic enough. There isn't like there's like no friction in the group of characters. Like nobody fights. Everybody's just like out there to be everyone's best friend, and get through this adventure. And it's very lighthearted. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. And then on top of that, it has some of the best gameplay in the series. I mean, it is pretty much infinitely replayable. So, I mean, I feel like I don't need to go on about this too much. I mean, a Final Fantasy V is not like, it's not dramatic, it's not Final Fantasy IV. It ain't Final Fantasy VI, but it might be one of the most fun Final Fantasies to actually play. Chris, what about you?
My second favorite Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo, and pretty much solidifies why I think 4, 5, and 6 are the best collection of games in the series. So, I mean, yeah, obviously highly recommend this game. You like sit down, play it, be patient, and you'll unlock just a ton of fun. This is a game that the more I play it, the more I love it. And the more I find something new, and the more I find a different way to try and attempt and play it. And it just reminds me that how strong of a series Final Fantasy was compared to its contemporaries back in the day. 'Cause even with some of its flaws, I think you look at almost any RPG that was made outside of a company named Enix, and it's so hard for anything to touch this. It's just so well crafted, so well made. Incredible game. And if you have not played this and you are a fan of RPGs, especially all these newfound fans of Final Fantasy Tactics out there, and if you have played Tactics and not played Final Fantasy V, how dare you? I actually prefer this. I prefer this job system to Final Fantasy Tactics, even though it is far more restrictive. I think it's because it's more restrictive. I just, yeah, play it. Get after it. There you go. Recommend.
Yeah, this might be a bit of a hot take because this includes Final Fantasy VIII. But what I've been saying for the longest time is that I think, the Super Nintendo and PS1 era, that range of 6 games is the best 6 Final Fantasy games. Like I think all of those are really, really enjoyable. And a big part of that, I think, comes down to kind of the standard of pacing that Sakaguchi set for those games. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't require like a really, super great story. I mean, the game has its twists and turns, but it's if you're not one of the kinds of people that's like, oh, a story is number one in RPGs, and you can just enjoy the game, just moving along and trying out your character abilities and just seeing where the journey takes you, then absolutely, I think you should play Final Fantasy V. The job system is iconic. People never stop talking about it for good reason. It's rarely been topped. And it's gone on to serve as the inspiration for more recent games like the Bravely Default series. And, those do some really smart, optimizations to the job system using a lot of the same classes. But what you won't get in those games is the phenomenal pacing of a Super Nintendo RPG. Those games drag on and on and on and on, even if they kind of tell a cooler story in the process, but the story is just less enjoyable because it doesn't have that snappy pacing of Final Fantasy V, and it's contemporary entries, kind of in that Sakaguchi produced era. So yeah, if you love RPGs for the sake of being RPGs, if you're the kind of person that likes to play RPGs and aren't just looking for the next crazy reveal or emotional character moment, then Final Fantasy V is absolutely a must play. You at the very least you need to experience the job system, and just kind of see some of the cool things you can do with that. And I think it serves as inspiration for so many games within Final Fantasy, within Square Enix, and beyond.
Hell yeah. We're all on the same page. Fantastic. I mean, I didn't think we wouldn't be, but somebody gonna throw a curveball in here. Also, I'll take a moment just to say, I mean, if you want to play a good Final Fantasy game with a great job system, may I recommend Final Fantasy : Strangers of Paradise. Final Fantasy Strangers of Paradise. Go play it.
I liked what I played of the demo of that. It's been a game that I've wanted to make a priority for many years. Just haven't gotten around to it. It kind of seemed like kind of a combination of like Souls and character action, except you actually like kind of got to build your own combos and like almost like kind of like make your own jobs in a way by like combining
sort
different
of
attacks. Yeah.
I expect that to be on your year-end video, Try.
Oh, now
that's a challenge. Formal challenge.
The pressure's on. I mean, every year I keep thinking like, this is the year I'm going to play Final Fantasy Origin, because it does actually kind of seem like an interesting game. I think
it's dumb fun. Dumb. That's the best way to describe it.
Well, so is Final Fantasy V, except it's also intelligent fun at the same time.
Strangers of Paradise is a 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10 game.
Now you've sold me. I I love a good 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10.
Speaking of things that you do at the end of the year, I mean, you've got, like you said, the Backloggery, My Life in Gaming. You're doing stuff with John Linneman now. Where can people find you and what you do on the internet? Mostly over on My Life in Gaming. Although since the DF Retro Super Show is a twice or every other week show, people can probably find me on the DF Retro Super Show over on Digital Foundry more frequently. But yeah, we're doing the DF Retro Super Show podcast over there, video podcast, also audio podcast, over on Digital Foundry with John Linneman, Corey Carlson, and Adi Surley. That's been a lot of fun. We got that going late last year, and but yeah, kind of my main thing is My Life in Gaming YouTube channel, which is just kind of whatever we want. It can be modern, it can be retro, but I think it's always with like a retro console gamer's eye on whatever topics we look at there. And we also stream on the YouTube channel every Sunday night. And we've been doing more frequent Twitch streams as well during the weekdays mostly, so and over on the Backloggery, Monday nights, twitch.tv/Backloggery. Always trying to make some backlog progress. So yeah, that's about pretty much where I am. Nice, man. And hey, again, really appreciate you taking the time out to come on the podcast and talk about the game.
Oh, no problem at all. I'm always looking for an excuse to either replay a favorite or knock something new off my backlog. So I was like, heck yeah, I'll replay some Final Fantasy V.
And Chris, of course, I mean, we all know you well, but just remind the fine folks where we can find you doing your thing.
Yeah, I'm over at the Retro Hangover podcast with my friend Shane. We do it together, and our editor extraordinaire, Ashton. You can find all of our stuff over at linktr.ee/retro hangover. And speaking of Final Fantasy V, I plan on streaming Final Fantasy V for the 4-Job Fiesta. We're planning to do a charity event for that. I'm going to talk about more of that on my own show. I don't want to plug things too much, but I'm looking forward to doing that this year. I wasn't able to last year. It's a little too busy. So I will prioritize that. I will give up the gym and eating because I need to give up both in order to maintain my girlish figure and look like butts. So, go check out linktr.ee/retro hangover. Go find us there. We talk about retro video games, obviously, and do other stuff like the King of Games, which, both Keith and Tri have been a part of or are still part of or will be in the future. Who knows? Go check that out.
Were we on the Final Fantasy V and Dragon Quest V episode? Who was I on that with?
That may have been all of us.
I honestly don't remember.
God, it's been so
Have I
long.
done a Final Fantasy V podcast before? I don't know.
I have to
That's
check.
what happens after just podcasting and doing video game stuff for so long. It's just like, did I talk about this already?
Here's my old schedule. Hold on. Because I keep the schedules for all of these. I know what we all did. Hold on.
I did
Final Fantasy
something. I did
V.
one of those games with Tri. Maybe it was just Dragon Quest V. I don't remember.
You did Final Fantasy V. Dragon Quest V was you, Ozzy, and Ashton.
Oh.
Keith.
What did I do with Tri? Was that Dragon Quest V? Did I do Dragon Quest V twice?
Dragon Quest V versus Zelda was me and Tri.
I'm living in a parallel universe, apparently.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was about to worry if my sense of deja vu was fading because I'm like, if I already talked about Final Fantasy V with you guys, I have no memory or deja vu or anything of that.
We were all on the Sonic 2 versus Dragon Quest V episode.
Oh yeah. Okay. There it is.
I know where my vote went on that.
It was a sweep.
The most unlikely sweep ever. Were people mad? Were people mad?
Yes.
I mean, there was a reason that the group Discord channel became the Dragon Quest V hero with glowing red eyes for a period of time. I don't even like Dragon Quest V that much, and I still voted for it over Sonic 2. Actually, I mean, I'm exaggerating. You know, it's kind of like Final Fantasy V, where it's like, well, you know, it's lesser than 4 and 6 to me, but still, that's pretty darn high. Same with Dragon Quest V for me. I just like other Dragon Quest games better. But anyway.
Sorry, yeah, Chris, I interrupted you while you were plugging yourself. Are you all plugged up?
I'm done. I'm done plugging myself.
You're plugged?
All of the crystals are equipped.
I feel like our tangents during the plug made it all the more entertaining.
Yeah.
It did.
Well, now that Chris is all nice and plugged again, appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking your time out. It's always fun talking to you. And
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
I'll see you in a couple weeks, right? Literally.
Yeah, in real life.
In real life. First time. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Just don't plug yourself while you're here.
and no promises.
With that said, I want to make sure that everybody out there is taking care of themselves. It's very important. And always remember, it's okay to like a video game.